Hello, everybody, and welcome to Single Malt Synthesis. I am Heinbach, and together, back with the regular crew, which is Divkid
Hello, how's it going?
and Konstantine.
Hello, everyone.
All doing fine. This is kind of I just did the worst count in. It reminded me of the times like when I was in the school band and the drummer went like tick 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 and then started to play dun, 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 at like a weird tempo and everybody just fumbled their way into the first tracks. So that was my count in just now. Yeah.
I've
Oh,
definitely had that one. It's kind of, are you ready? Are you ready? Everybody's looking at each other, quite a big group, and then someone counts off a completely different tempo.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, you're a drummer, right?
I imagine I'm guilty of a bad count off or two. The worst thing, nicer for me when I've been on drums, I have had it on guitar in covers bands where there's maybe been a change of singer, a dep that stepped in to cover a cover band gig or something like that, and they turn around as this drummer is counting in to tell you the key has changed. Oh, remember that Rachel's a bit higher, so we're going to do it up in G tonight. And you're like, what? It's
Okay,
horrible.
Yeah.
As long as one of you is on it, usually the keys player was the MD, and he was usually on it very quickly. Like, oh, we can style this out for a few bars.
Nice. Funny. What are you guys drinking tonight?
Okay. I guess I'm gonna start. Yeah.
Yeah, you go.
So I have a very special one today.
Oh, okay.
Come here.
Lafroig Lore. Oh, wow.
Yep. Yeah, it's really good.
What makes the Lore different from the regular one?
You get a piece of land when you buy this one.
What?
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very special one.
And are you supposed to eat that while you drink?
Or no, you're supposed to stand on it while you drink the whiskey.
to root you back.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And Ben, what's your drink for tonight?
Same as before the Super Booth streams, because I didn't really drink much through those, like the real Super Booth. I was like, this is a marathon. We've got to get through this. The last of the hang on, this is weird. Balcones Texan single malt.
Yes.
Very nice. Little bit sweet, but yeah, nice. Nice drink.
Lovely. Yeah, I've got a new one. I got an Oshentoshen. Can you see? Yes. And this is the 3-wood Rich and Elegant. And I don't have anything on this special one in the good book by Michael Jackson, so I can't read anything about it. But what I know about this distillery is that they're always trying to push the envelope a bit. They're a pretty young one, and usually their whiskey is generally very easy to drink. So it's a nice whiskey for, if you're new to whiskey drinking, I think. So I'm happy to try that now. And actually, oh, this is. I hope the resolution on the camera is bad enough that you don't see how our dishwasher treated this glass.
Glasses in the dishwasher. That's a hot topic over here between different family members.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like an interesting subject.
You on a good Friday night out, Konstantine. You come to Bradford. Yeah, just joking.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's see how this sounds. I haven't popped it up.
Oh, that was a nice one.
Even with a little bit of clipping, it had a soft clip to the.
Had a soft. They should actually say that, like when they pop it. It has a soft clipping sound.
I bet the taste of clipping would be like really medicinal, like really you would taste like the alcohol probably.
I was thinking soft clipping is like a crushed almond texture. It's kind of nutty, but not. It's not hard. It's not breaking the walnut in your mouth.
Soft clipping, yeah, definitely. No, hard clipping is harsh, probably.
Yeah.
So this one is indeed really smooth and easy to drink and very warm. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh.
Well, we're at it. Soft clipping with an almond aura.
More. Oh God,
Yeah.
we haven't even started yet.
Yeah. What's like gonna be our bingo for this one? I think last time we had stereo filters and we had Coco Quantos was also on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, MIDI.
Yeah.
MIDI.
Yeah, MIDI.
I remembered what the previous, the quote year of Super Booth was. It was the year of the oscillator, because all of those Curtis chip, the CEM oscillator chips came out in various guises, official and unofficial ways to get them. So everybody seemed to make an analog oscillator last year. So I couldn't remember for the life of me. They may be in the chat now, question if this is the year of the stereo filter, what was it? I was thinking, well, we had all those performance mixers one year. We had all the kind of sample stuff, Nebulae, Morphogene, Instro stuff, tip-top ones, simple sample players. But yeah, year of the CEM oscillator or the Curtis oscillator last year.
Yeah. And this year was stereo filter, right? Or has that changed in your opinion?
No. It's still the year of the stereo filter.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's nice to see that. I think it was inevitable that maybe not filtering, but stereo was going to push its way out. I think the Make Noise Q passed, and then the steady state Fate stereo dipole really pushed open this idea of stereo filters. They'd existed before in various guises, but I think both of those did very well, and the scene took to the idea of those very well. So people kind of thought, and then, we're building up systems that have stereo effects, and then now some of the effects aren't mono in stereo out, they're stereo in stereo out. People like Morgan at Wrong giving us all these really cool ways to make and mix and mangle stereo. It's inevitable, I think.
Do you think I was reading a very interesting discussion, I think it was Muff Whitler, and they were talking about why use stereo on modulars?
Why not?
If you were going to go live, yeah, it might make sense. Although people were saying that maybe it doesn't even make sense when you play live, because if it's in a club, you lose all stereo imaging anyway from big systems. So there's a big discussion, and people weren't just being coy about it. Like, oh, I don't like stereo. So it's very interesting. I would appreciate your opinion on whether going stereo on a modular actually makes sense, or playing live and having stereo makes sense for you.
Do you want to go, Pineback, or do you want me to take that?
You start, please.
Okay. I think I mentioned the club systems being mono, and it was Morgan actually at Wrong who said, that's just an old myth from the 80s kind of thing, that most systems are stereo. And I was like, maybe it's probably spread and, just something that people now just say and continue to say, even though it's not really true. I've certainly played in systems where it is mono, but I imagine more of them than we probably think are actually stereo now. And watching some videos with some big kind of front of house systems, there was a great video, I forget the PA company, but it was the Prodigy's live sound engineer, and he was talking about stereo spread live and in how you manage that in a big theater or a huge arena. So it's like, all right, there's not really much something to mono going on other than the subs under the stage. Even the subs were stereo out on the sides, which is kind of odd, but he had his reasons. So I think, yeah, we probably, and I'm guilty of just continuing to say that as oh no, live systems are all mono, and it's like, they're not really. But I mean, why not is the thing, why not stereo? Certainly if there's a chance to play it back. I mean, it's weird if you're in stereo and the PA isn't. I think that would be a worse situation. If I knew I was, say, stereo monitoring in headphones and I knew they weren't hearing it, I'd be worried about phase issues. And from the get-go, I would have just gone mono. Had I known, I would have just gone mono. I remember turning up to play in Seattle. It was a bit of an impromptu, hey, do you want to play before the event? We've got another kind of warm-up gig. So I did that, and they said, if you can give us 8 lines, we've got a quad set up, and we can set either stepped modulation or smooth modulation from 8 inputs across this quad space. But the whole system and patch ran through a stereo effects chain. So because I didn't know that, I couldn't take advantage of the surround in any way. I had basically had a 2-bus, like an output bus that had a whole like pre-effect section, looper, post effects section. So I could loop wet effects and then choose to do whatever with them and filter them down and back up, again with a stereo filter. Or I could loop things and move them and have effects continue to trail on. And because every single sound went through, I was like, well, I can't give you like a dry percussion feed, because if you've got that and I'm totally wet and blissed out in kind of delay lines, it's going to be really odd. So let's just go stereo, just feed the back and the front the same. It'll be fine. Why not stereo? I mean, unless you know that it's not going to be in the end. I can't think of a good reason to really just be mono, other than mix techniques where you think, actually, don't pan your bass drum hard left. Probably not going to go down well. So, but we can get into mix techniques. But I don't know. What do you think, Heimbach?
I am moved between stereo and mono because I play Seat Lombard instruments, and I think I mentioned before on the Coco Quantos, bingo, and most of the Seat Lombarda instruments, stereo is part of the acoustic body of the instrument. The sound always travels from left to right on the Z-Drugs, on the Deerhorn organ, on the Tetrax, everywhere there's the stereo body. And when I patch, the left and the right side of these instruments is always hard left or hard right. So when I patch a bass drum in there, it is panned hard left. So I either double stack that or I just go mono. And that's something that I do during the sets when I say, okay, I'm moving to rhythmic parts. Whoop, all the panning goes in, and then I'm in mono. And then when I go to more ambient parts, I go back up again. So I like this kind of feeling that in the club parts, it becomes all very, and then it goes back out again. And I've never had a mono PA actually.
Okay. It's interesting. So you're doing this on a mixer. You have a hardware mixer live. You choose to pull them in and push them out.
Exactly. So else I would get like crazy. I mean, I can do dual bass drums left and right, and that creates for some weird things. People are like, okay, because it's disorientating. But if you want to focus, just pulling them in is nicer, and then it's more satisfying instead of like. So it's an effect that's playable with. So depending on what you want.
I think that's a really important point, that we think about level and maybe EQ and filter changes, and in a dance context, you're thinking about, I'll take the low end out of this, but keep the percussion chaining into the next track and so on. To actually think about our stereo images live. I was discussing this with Ed Ball, that I do the Esoteric Modulation podcast with, about, do you want a setup? And of course, there's nothing wrong with one that does, that is entirely tape based and lo-fi, because you then can't present a hi-fi crystal clear image through some of the gear we were discussing. Said you could have a system where you can dip in and out of that. So he's looking at things like looping in a Coco Quantus and some tape loops, but also just having a Ditto X4 looper over the output. And he plays with a continuum. So again, it's very nice, crystal bright upfront kind of modal synthesis and all the other things the continuum does, and have it as a bedded lo-fi loop or a more hi-fi thing. And I thought that was an interesting angle. I've still not really thought about stereo image live. Certainly automated panning, just typical, but not like, right, this is like hitting this, we're going to go pretty in and central and then come out expansive again in the open sections. That's really cool.
What I really like is audio rate panning. Because that's just a patch cord away, and then the audio rate panning of something that is extreme, and you can create these ripping stereo sounds. You can tear stuff apart. That's really nice, and that sounds especially good in stereo. It's really, if the PA is good and goes low, especially if you say the subs on some PAs are also in stereo, then that's really cool. Such a great effect, and
stereo subs.
Sure. Yes, so the one sub for the left, one sub for the right, so they're
really
basically, yeah.
I've never run across it. Like usually it's a typical one. Like sub will be this one in the, because I thought the whole idea with the sub being mono was that there's it's very hard to discern where the bus comes from.
It is hard, but still, like in the theater, the subs are usually there are two subs, and they're usually left and right, so I can often like play these separately, and that does also really well when you're doing like effects. So you can go do something that rumbles through the room, and that's
Mm.
definitely movement you can sense in the deep bass. You can sense different the deep thing that's moving. So it is possible, and I think it's nice to think about that. And but it requires you to basically have time with the sound system beforehand
Yeah.
to try out something like that. And that's to have time for something like that. Oh, when I can do that, I love it because then I can basically create a performance for the room and the space. But in a festival situation, no time.
Our friend Alert from Sauna Traffic, who joined us in the Super Boost streams, has just mentioned in the chat that stereo subs is pretty much the norm for any real serious PA system these days. So I should stop saying PA systems are mono.
Yeah.
We've cleared up a myth. Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. We've cleared up a
And
myth.
Audio Mythbusters, new thing.
Yeah, audio Mythbusters. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we should have that like as a segment, audio myth busting.
Yeah, we could try stuff in real time actually. You know, put an experiment on the list and then try it out.
And do good idea. And we can
But
have
but
suggestions.
no stereo experiments on the stream because it's mono.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the fun thing. Everybody, oh, let's see. Can you hear how it sounds in stereo? That's mono. Sorry.
Yeah. I did reach
yeah.
out to StreamYard. Again, doing the podcast to do with Ed, not that I'm trying to force that as a plug or anything. Some of the platforms we were using to try and capture live and not have guests record on their end, they're very responsive. So when I was telling him about StreamYard, I said, just message them.
Okay.
So I have, and they said, we're looking into stereo, and we'll pass this on as another kind of taken request that way. So
cool.
That would be really cool. Just I'm watching I know that this is a very casual stream, but I'm still eyeballing the chat like with this.
Please
is super
please do. Please do.
Steve Turner. Well, go to bed, Steve. It's late in Australia. I know, Steve. You mentioned earlier that he may be up for this, but he says Steve Morse, the guitarist, had a piezo bridge in his electric guitar, which actually split the strings into two outputs, so different strings across the stereo image. That's a really lovely way to work with synths. I have 3 of 1 synth at the moment, some prototypes. It's nothing, the synth itself is nothing too exciting, but I'm just looking at ART make a Pro Mix 3, probably about this big, just level and pan, stereo out, headphone. So I have 3 of these synths in a tier that I'll make a video of when it's ready, with the idea being that I can have hard left, hard right, mono, unison, or I can have a poly voice, a free voice poly, where they're just slightly out, but not fully. I like these ideas of different notes will just hit different things. It reminds me of writing for strings, where you think of this semicircle of violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello. And they're not hard left and right, because you're not sat in the semicircle around your ears, and you're in a room that provides reflections. But there is this panning that you feel when you either direct mic them and then place them as they should be, or XY, or whatever the stereo micing you might be doing. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing to take each guitar string and just kind of go, you that way, you that way.
Short question. That's like a prototype thingy that you're demoing, that you're reviewing for. It's like a standalone, or is it like?
I'll show you. It's nothing new. Just let me scooch off camera.
Okay.
It's weird what Ben was saying about the string section, because you usually wouldn't have different parts for the different for strings.
Yeah. Sorry,
Like
I was just looking. Can you see the giant thing in the back of his chair?
Are we checking the new stuff that he has? That's a huge computer.
Is it a computer?
It looks like it. Or
no,
behind
me.
That's not a computer.
No.
This is, it's a coffee machine.
No, this is well, the B word, as Nick Batt would say.
Okay.
It's 3 neutrons.
Okay.
And back when there was a really good, unfortunately, a lot of them have left. I don't want to get into that side of things, but the people I knew that worked in Manchester for them, great ex-Midas engineers, they were prototypes and testing and all that kind of thing. And they were here. And I thought I should do something with them. So
okay. Cool.
I'm going to chain them, MIDI chain them, try and build a little poly instrument. We'll see what happens. It
Nice.
should be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. I mean, getting many things together. I mean, that's wall of sounding is always lovely. Doubling stuff, and then when you don't have to double it by double tracking, but can do it live, that has its own kind of magic to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of in the chat people saying, "Is this the coffee machine?" I think you know what this is, Timeback. I think you guessed it based on the font a while ago.
Yeah, what was it again? Is that the radio?
Yeah, it's an old, I think it's about 1947, post World War II British naval radio.
Yeah. I remember you told me about that. I remember
Check
you told
this.
me about
Let me just move.
World War II a special machine.
It's got some great clunking on the power switches. Worth it just for that. Thinking of your mechanical noise video.
that.
Yeah, it's a radio receiver, and it came up on Facebook Marketplace, very cheap. It weighs 46 kilograms, so I don't mind kind of sharing the idea here. The idea was to make a video titled "My 46 kilogram or 100-pound noise source," because it's effectively just noise. But as I got digging around the internet, I found it does some really cool, odd, noisy, ring modulated like tones, and you suggested getting an FM AM transmitter like you had for a car before Bluetooth was common in cars, so I could send my own audio through it, which I have one somewhere. But the bandpass width and filter controls on it are fantastic. Drives really nicely. I've just been throwing wire out of the back window of the house, and it does pick up odd bits of radio, these really ghostly kind of haunting voices. It's huge. It's never going to move. Like it's really, like I say, it's 46 kilograms. So
Yeah.
it's not moving. But yeah, interesting piece, and some really, really odd. I guess it is ring modulation because there's a crystal oscillator in the pickup for it. So
at least it's some amplitude modulation. AM probably also, right?
Yeah, maybe it's just that. So there's some kind of odd rectification, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear the sounds. I mean, we could even do we could do a double video. Just thinking about that. Oh! I do have even effects on. Do I have effects on? Effects. I've got no effects. Oh, thank you, David Ramirez. Why are my effects off?
David was contributing really nicely through the Super Boost streams as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, for supporting what we're doing. That's really cool.
Yeah, let me just. David, a new one.
A new one.
Yes. Thank you. So no, but let's do a double video because I need to turn this off. Okay. Too many cables. No, because I've got the DX200. You know, I've got also like a shortwave radio, a more modern one. It looks like from the time of like Stranger Things plays, like the 80s. So yeah, and I still need to throw up. I've got the antenna still unpacked. I need to throw it up onto the thing. So we could do like I don't know, kind of collaborate on a video and something like that. Would be fun.
That'd be cool.
What kind of sounds we can pick up?
Yeah.
So, and then we could even like ask Sam to come back because he already made one with his bomber thingy. So,
and if we maybe make a short loop, if we can all transmit them into each other's machines, that could be pretty cool.
Exactly, and do stuff with that, and then make a track with only radio noises. All the possibilities.
Does it pick up radio signals from 1958? It's way too late, Steve, in the chat. It's about 10 years, 11 years too late for this thing. No, it picks up whatever's around. It does okay. Perfect for hearing the shipping forecast.
Isn't there this thing, because I was Googling, I came across a lot of like weird stuff, of course, when I search test equipment. And there's one thing, there's this airport weather broadcast. So airports, I don't know if that's still a thing, but airports used to broadcast weather. There was a special channel. And I don't, if anyone in the chat knows what that is, what the name of that, it has a name that I knew it because the company that made this magnetic tape recorder that was on vinyl, like the vinyl tape recorder, that company was called Assman, which reads like Assman. And they changed their name to that process basically, and called themselves that ASTBM or something. So, which was probably a good move, but makes it hard to research anything about this whole world of yeah, radio broadcast, just the weather from different airports.
Hmm.
Yeah. Analog Weapon, they do still broadcast weather. And do you know what that channel is called? That would be lovely to know.
Yeah, I need to go number station hunting.
Yeah, you probably need a big antenna. Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe some of these are strong. That's another thing. Like, there's so much stuff you can research, but just to find it for yourself is lovely.
Yeah.
And you can talk to the you cannot talk. You need a license for that. But you can listen to the ISS and stuff like that when you're in the right position and you get a antenna. Even you can do like with the small handheld ones. They're the small like $30 handheld thingies that work apparently pretty well. So there's a lot of stuff there. But apparently radio people get very angry when you talk to them and you want to use it for music. they think you want to start your radio station. Like, no radio, no singing on this. Stuff like that. I continue on that. Like, there was one scene in Stranger Things, that Netflix series, where they were singing like a My Little Pony song. And I later read in some of those forums, yeah, it was pretty cringe because you're not allowed to sing because of licensing stuff, because then you become a radio station. So it's a very, very special world, the world of broadcast. No.
Yeah, I mean, in England, certainly, I'm sure around everywhere, but very prominent in the UK. Just illegal pirate radio has been such a thing for so long. And even now, and growing up in the 90s and things, it was still a big thing of, oh, have you seen that jungle and drum and bass station that comes in like just as you drive outside the city centre, but only on the northwest side?
Awesome.
Great. Some really cool and still some really interesting pirate radio as well. Almost take it very seriously, keen to kind of hunt out good music and support good music. And it's great. A great comedy series by the BBC called People Just Do Nothing is based on a pirate radio station off of the top of a kind of high-rise flat down south in England somewhere. It's very funny.
Nice. I think Kevin Dutzy said broadcast the Azos Avos. I think Azos, yeah, that could be it. I think I remember if it's Azos, that could be the thing that I was talking about earlier. I just, for a theater play, because I very much, like, even in theater, which is the world of fake, and the team that I work with, we strive for realism. And so when we had a play where all the actors would do all their sounds, everything, with like tape machines and vinyl recorders and stuff like that. We even had a radio, and then the station that they would listen to on that radio would be broadcast through a little transmitter. And so everyone that would be around the theater, like I think a kilometer even, this is a tiny thing, it's super powerful, would be able to hear our broadcast. Totally illegal. Don't tell anyone. We didn't say anything. But it would really, like, that was the amount of realism we went to. So a real FM transmission so the actor could, like, had to search for the things. And then it would go off and it would be real. So, and they had to interact. That added another layer of stress and I think also tension, and made it better, I think, after they gotten used to that they're on their own with these things.
I used to really enjoy motorway driving with, again, one of those basic cheap little transmitters with the idea of getting it from a phone to a car or something. And their radius was terrible, but it would sometimes, if you had normal radio on, kick into a car that just drove past. And I remember a couple of times hearing tunes and I'm just like, what is this? Like, just total mind-bending electronic music, and just like, speed up, catch that car. It must have been that car.
And did you catch someone then? Did you say, what were you playing?
Once out of a handful of times, never to like shout out of the window, but a couple of times it's kind of come back again, and it's that, as you say with the play, just that tension of it's there, like it's on 106 FM, it's there. And then, you know, it would go again. And you're like, oh, it can't have been that car, it must have been the one we took over, or chasing unknown tunes.
I used to put my car stereo in in AM, and just drive around the city of Athens in Greece, and just like weird audio map of the city, because you would get all this interference from the electric cables, and every time you took a turn, things shifted. So it would be like a map driving with your ears on a car. It's an interesting experience to just do that while driving.
Definitely. The one thing, like my first synthesizer was the radio. I think I said that. That's like I just had like this big old radio from my then girlfriend, and that had such good sound, and I could mic it, and it would do all these bloop, 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 Euro signals, and it was a lovely way to get FM sounds. They were pretty raw, and then sampled into the SK1. When I was really happy about that one sound, and we used it in a track, and I would just like, and then for live I tried to recreate that sound on the Roland Jupiter, not Jupiter, but they call it Jupiter, I think 8000 was my first real synthesizer, and I failed. I couldn't get that sound to sound this raw. And now when I think about it, it's pretty hard to capture like a radio signal recorded via a microphone into an SK1, pitched down like an octave to get that sound out of a Jupiter 8000. That's pretty tough.
Yeah. I remember hearing the late 90s kind of jungle into drum and bass at the turn of the 2000s movement, where a lot of the bass sounds were resampled. So it's maybe a big, thick kind of Reese bass, it would typically be called, but where there was LFOs and beating. And of course, when it just goes in a really crude sampler, much like tape, speed and pitch are connected. So lower notes would kind of ebb and flow slowly. Higher notes were really kind of intense, because it's effectively like sending volt per octave to the LFO, as well as the pitch of the oscillator is a kind of way to get around it now. But even without that tonal shift of pitch shifting samples in a non-modern sampler, I don't know what rack units they'll have been using at the time, but that was a sound I just couldn't chase. I was like, why do the high notes have this like urgency to them, and the low ones are like just this kind of slow ebb and flow? And I just couldn't, at the time, I just didn't make that connection at all. Really didn't realize. But it was one of those things for years. It took me so long to realize what was going on. Acoustic instruments as opposed to kind of sampling was always my thing. Although I liked electronic music, I just didn't have anyone around me to can inform me of any of that. So that really boggled my mind for a long time. I tried doing it on my guitar, like really fuzzing up the guitar and then filtering it and having an expression pedal on a tremolo. It was like, I can kind of like do it, but if the guitar's wrong, like I don't want the guitar sound. I tried my best for many years, but yeah.
That's almost like people singing with autotune, even though they don't have autotune on. So they mimic that.
Yeah,
that has that effect, mimicking the technology.
And yeah, there's people that do that mimic it. Yeah, very strange. It's a sad state of affairs to get into, but why people think they need to sound like that now. And there was a lot of that when I was working in music education.
Yeah.
I never sound like that. And even people with a really amazing voice, but just completely tainted by the kind of talent show generation of, I don't sound like this singer. I'm like, but and I would never just say to students, you sound amazing, and just to try and feed their ego, but genuinely like, God, they sound stunning. They're such a great singer. Every emotion is coming across. They are on note, they're on pitch, or they're sharp when they need to be for intensity off the back of a phrase, but they've got it. They've just absolutely got it. But some of them just crippled by, I don't sound like these acts that I listen to. And it's like, you don't need to. Please don't.
It's just a whole lot of technology that's involved. I mean, there's an extra job, vocal comping, where people that just comp vocals and try to pick the best parts and layer them and then pitch them, and then the producer gets this comped vocal and it's done. So
is it a new thing?
No, it has been out for a bit longer. It's just a very specialized thing. So we've got just sound artists who only record the voice, for example. Sound recorders just go for the voice, because I mean, recording voice is also is a very special process. So it's that can very easily break. Like the mood is very important when you record a singer and stuff like that, and you need to really find the spots where you know when you can push them, when you have to let loose and stuff. So I find it no wonder that there are specialized recorders and people that then just take these and edit these to make it super perfect.
There's talk of, unless it's something we should move on, but my curiosity has piqued. What is a Schlager?
A
Dutch word.
Schlager. Oh, yeah.
If it's something we shouldn't talk about, it's fine.
No, Schlager is basically really cheesy German music that's made for consumption. Like it's pop, German pop music, and it's but it pedals always to the lowest common denominator.
I get what you mean. Made en masse, just made to be just constantly kind of consumed and churned over.
Yeah, it's musically really not challenging, but it sells like big artists, really big artists, and there are some that are really weird. Also, I mean, I went into a discussion with James Murphy of Death from Above, LCD Sound System, and he wanted to know what's up with Heino. And Heino is this Andy Warhol looking guy. He's got a blonde hair, like black glasses that are always closed. So he looks kind of albino. And then he sings Schwarzbraun ist die Haselnuss. And he sings these old German Wandervögel lieder, but arranged in a new context. And they were basically producers that said, I see all this money that's from royalties, and that's going to the States because everybody's listening to this American music now, this rock and roll. We need to keep some of that money here. And that was an actual interview with one of his producers and songwriters. So I thought, let's find someone, and we have all these old songs. They're all free. Let's make them, and then we make money making new arrangements, and then bring the licensing money back. And that was how Heino basically started. But he got his really weird outfit, and if you like Google Heino, and you'll find he looks like that, like Andy Warhol in that regard. So, and he became something of an icon. I think he even made like a kitsch icon, because Schlager made a big comeback among people like in the 90s. So like it became cool to be this kitsch, and they made like a love parade for Schlager and stuff like that. And it was, I can't. There's some of these songs that are really good. They're really good, like crafted well. There's good music in that regard, but much of it is just like basically one guy press and play on a cork triton. That would just be like.
I only bring it up because again, Alec Son Traffic said Dutch pirate radio was largely Schlager music.
Oh, really?
He said it was disappointing because that was about it.
But it was very meta, or like a hipster thing, right? They were doing it ironically, I guess.
Ironic Schlager.
Could
Ironic
be.
Schlager.
Yeah, there was a movement like in the 90s when everything, basically the whole mood was, let's just rehash the whole century and let's do everything ironically. So that's when Schlager got his second wind and got really,
it's a good word.
Yeah, really big. So
being in Germany, an odd sidestepping question for you, really, but did electro swing, like modern kind of electro house beats with old big band swing samples, become a big thing in Germany?
I think it was. I mean, there was like parties, lots of electro swing parties. I don't know, is it now? I don't know how the swing movement in general is now, but it was definitely like, I think it's the same like that and Bukowina Club. Also, those were like very big parties usually. Electro swing parties are really big here. But not that I know as a dad of like, and it's not the events that I go. And if I would go out in Berlin, I would go to more like minimal stuff.
Yeah, I bring it to a friend, Jamie Berry, who did a remix of an early DivKid tune long before it was anything DivKid was anything to do with modular, and he was often in Germany and Berlin to play nearly all his gigs, nearly every weekend.
Yeah.
So I was like, God, it must be big over there.
Yeah.
Over here, it wasn't really a thing. He scored an Auto Trader advert, which is a big secondhand car thing. The Boxing Day, like peak time Boxing Day, kind of day after Christmas advertising slot. That was the first time I think in England it really became a thing, and it was great for him in many ways, which is great because he's a lovely person. But I remember just all the way up to that and hearing that it was always, I'm just going to Germany, pretty much Berlin, all the time, all his gigs.
I kind of
So
think I did an electro swing kind of track. I have to like I wonder if I can go through my like I don't even have that. That was like in the early 2000s type of thing, but I took like the what's the ballroom blitz? That swing beat.
yeah,
It's such a good groove, and I bit crushed the hell out of that, and then added like all the roads and played stuff over it, and had a singer even, and I think it was like the lyrics were oh god no,
We have to
when
hear
the
it now.
ice
You
age
know,
comes,
right?
I'll be standing on the glacier. That wasn't what very prophetic of me because the ice age is like we've got reverse ice age, so so when the heat age comes, but yeah. So I remember, yeah, we did one track of that,
You
but
have to dig the grades and bring it up now.
yeah, I wish I I'm not very good with like managing of old backups. I don't know how you are. Is
not really.
yeah, so kind of.
There's a lot of old material online, and I may have mentioned in another stream. Someone kept sending me it, and I was like, not really embarrassed by it. You can keep sending me it. I don't know if they were trying to prod me, like, "Hey, look at what you used to do," and it not be like something cool, which it probably isn't now. That's fine. But I'm not disappointed of it either. Nor have I been on a mission to delete it from the internet and go back to old aggregators that put things online and make them remove it. And I'm not bothered. It's what happened 10+ years ago. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not good with backing all that up. And naively at the time, or looking at it, maybe it was a naivety that there's some interesting compositional ideas in quite a lot of it. Production's terrible, but there's quite a lot of interesting compositional ideas that I put down to just having no idea what I was doing coming into the electronic side from acoustic instruments. So I do wish I had the backups. I would like to pull bits of MIDI and odd little samples and sounds out, but I have no idea where any of that is.
And then to get like the software running even. Like I've got I use Cubase, and that's I don't even know like how Cubase 3.6 and something like that. And that was before they relaunched it as Cubase. So now it's again like decades ago. So it seems a lot of work to get that to work again.
Yeah, some of it came into its own for me around VST3 version of Cubase and Reason version 2.
Okay.
God knows. Even if I found it, if I could open any of it, I figure Cubase would maybe load up as a kind of skeleton frame, and if there was any MIDI, I could maybe get MIDI out, but certainly nothing else. Yeah.
No, maybe I don't know. I just got a VHS recorder, just to be able to look at the old tapes and stuff like that, and maybe digitize those because that would be fun to have, and also, yeah, experiments. Let's see what I can do with that. So VHS looping. I know there's a few people that do that. It's really not easy, but it could be interesting. Visual looping. Another project for the I don't know, whenever there's time.
Yeah, it's a Boards of Canada thing, isn't it? VHS sound, apparently. They were in a lot onto cranky old VHS as
I
opposed
thought
to
they had like this old Grundig, an old tube Grundig that they used, but
could
also be.
You never know with Boards of Canada. The amount of kind of rumor and speculation surrounding all that, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
All
There's
my
a whole-
best girl in a gale, all my best stuff is on MySpace.
Oh God.
Oh.
I had to go on MySpace the other day. It's still there. My friends at a band, Minge Morte, and I was trying to find a link for someone, and I didn't have the files to hand. I just sent them a file, and I had it. Worst case, a CD. I could have got in touch with Colin that plays in that band. Said send a CD to this person, but we had to go on MySpace. It's not what it used to be. With the learning very basic HTML to get like a glitter background and all that terrible, horrible things that people used to do. It was good though. MySpace, for me early on with gigs, a ton of gigs supporting bands from MySpace. Just that very basic, naive thing, being young, of, hey, we kind of sound like you. We really like what you're doing, and I think we listen to the same kind of bands. Can we come and do a gig? It's like, yeah, we'll get you a gig in Plymouth, like hours away from me down south, and you get us a gig in Bradford or Leeds or wherever. all that. And it was we kind of spoke about this coming out of lockdown and having these spots to land in, this kind of being able to tour without the mechanics of a tour being around it. It was very much like that early days MySpace. It was great.
Yeah, I remember like it was we had pretty good with my band there, and I just looked up on MySpace. There's still a profile there, no music, some pictures, which won't like enhance. But I just found one of myself, which is funny. But no, it used to be pretty good for us. I remember that we had a bunch of features there and a lot of views and listens. I think used to be a good thing. But also really horrible, like with all the constant, like everybody would edit like the HTML of everything and it would look all over differently.
Yeah,
I haven't looked into my MySpace page in like more than 10 years. I have no idea what's going on.
I think we got half the chat looking at their old MySpace.
Yeah, I think like whoever brought it up was like, shh, blast from the past. But it's weird that it's still around.
Yeah, I didn't like. Who's the guy? I'm bringing sexy back. Who's that? From NSYNC.
Yeah.
Bim, bim, bim,
I'm not sure how you. With the way you sang that made me think of about 3 different songs.
No.
The Justin Timberlake song.
Justin Timberlake, exactly. Justin Timberlake, he bought it. He bought MySpace. Yeah, he bought MySpace. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Odd.
Okay.
Very odd. What was early days for you? Music like Konstantine. I don't know too much your kind of background there. Do you have did you play an instrument first?
Wait, no, I have a very weird background. Haven't we discussed this before? Anyway, okay. So I have a very weird background because I started with noise. So my first, I was during a chemistry lab thing, because one of my degrees is in chemistry. So we were doing sound experiments. So I got the information on the how to build the oscillator device that we were using for the experiment. And starting from there, I met some very interesting people. And we started a band called Slap Combat. Oh, God.
Slap Combat?
Yeah.
Slap Combat?
Slap Combat. It was with Bill Kuligas, who runs Pan Records. They're quite notorious. And then it was Family Battlesnake, the second band. Anyway, we started doing noise stuff. We even got some really good reviews in Wire.
Right. I wonder if maybe Robin Rambard Scanner had something to do with that. I think he was writing for the Wire, possibly around. I'm making heavy presumptions of the time frame. So.
No idea. Anyway, it was around 2000 something. And to make a long story short, moved into playing lute for some reason. Yeah, the lute. And then I had a teacher who was famous in Crete, like a British guy who played various instruments called Ross Daly, who told me, look, you can either learn, you will either have to learn all music, you will have to learn all the songs by heart, or you will have to learn theory in order to read music from his sheet. So I went to a conservatory and learned there. So I started going to a conservatory being like, I already had a noise background, so it was a weird situation. And, got into modular stuff like more than 10 years ago and like bought pedals and stuff. Yeah. That's how I think I started like Matt Wiggler back in 2010 or something like that. It was a different place. It's weird like talking with you guys because it's been a long time we've been doing this thing, right?
Yeah. I think we'll have a lot of goos. The green goos on Muffwiggler.
Yeah.
I've not been on in a long time, but I imagine there's many goos.
I also haven't been there for a long time.
It was. We don't need to get like waxing lyrical about the Muffwiggler farm, but man, it was so amazing. when I started.
Yeah.
Every single post fostered just a mass of communication and interesting conversation. That Muffig, like 6 months on Muffigler when I started, was worth more than my whole degree, near enough. It was just like boom, just hit me in the face, and people were so open, so responsive. Not in a like, I was going to say so respectful. I don't think people are massively disrespectful on there now, but just so kind of, I'm going to help you. I'll probably learn something from you in another few days. And just this whole, someone found an old thread. It was Matthias from Propellerhead, actually, that works on the Reason software. He's looking into rectifiers. And he's like, hey, I found a rectifier thread that you started like 6-7 years ago. And I'm like, oh man, that thread's a gold mine.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've got to go save all this text. There's some patch tips in there that I'd totally forgotten about.
Yeah, these old threads with like on Surge and stuff like that. There's the really encyclopedias of information. Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of information. I absolutely like. I understand why people have some issues with the forum nowadays, but being there for around, I think it's been almost 10 years, maybe less. But God, like the early days was amazing. Everyone was amazingly helpful. Like you might ask the stupidest questions, and everyone was like giving you all the information, how to start, where to look. It kept, and it was good company. Like I consider, I met Heimbach there
Yeah.
from Muffler.
Yeah, I met a lot of people through Mavigla. It was really, really, yeah, it was the best place to meet people and then create like real life things. So yeah, it was really good for that.
All my real life connections came from there. Alert just shouted out Nav Sports Modulator Guide. Amazing.
Yeah.
I had fun with that the other day, actually, the Topper Brillo Sport Modulator.
Yeah.
That unfortunately, people still joke, PM'd for maths, and maths is, of course, and rightfully so, very successful, which is great because it's a very deserving module. But the sport modulator was held in equal regard when I got into modular. You had to have a sport modulator and a maths. It was always both because they do slightly different things. And it's super Surge. I mean, of course, maths has its history in Surge as well, but the patch programmability of this could be a sample and hold, or it could be an LFO, or just a little bit more than maths maybe. Its patch programmability would seem more like the smooth stepped generator from Surge, which is a bit heavier on the patch programming, I think, hence the epic kind of navs guide. But yeah, all of those connections, it was the first forum I ever went on. I wasn't kind of into forums when I was younger, so when someone said, hey, I'm also in Bradford, do you want to meet? And I'm kind of like, I was old enough not to be, but it's kind of like my mum told me not to speak to strangers on the internet. It's really weird kind of feeling. But I met MatTech on there. Of course, MatTech Modular, the store, and
yeah, lovely. He turned it into a store. He was one of the guys who was constantly buying new modules. And then he turned this like that into a store. It was really cool.
He was very excited about new stuff. We had a lot of discussions via PMs with Matt. He's a great guy. It was super nice, and and then he opened the store and was like, "Yeah, that's a good course of action."
Super good idea for him. Yeah. I've been through a lot of forums actually. I've been like, I had like a life. I started in I think first forum I went to was a radio one, and I would go there like in 1990. I think I was regular there, and I think it was Waste or something. And I would just like type stuff. Nobody would really interact with me. It was really weird. But then I discovered CubaseNet, and I spent like a lot of time there, CubaseNet. And that was really, I also got thousands of posts and trying to like learn something and then help other people. And then I left that, I think like in 2004 or something. And then it took me 6 years before I joined MAFS, and then I did the same thing, like learning and then trying to help the new people again. I think that was really a good thing about that. So, Jason. Oh, man. Thank you. I have to use the H3000. It's just
very impressive.
It's you can't hear the stereo yet.
Yeah, you guys are making me reminiscent. But it's
This
nice.
is
Okay. So I think we're almost close to 10 o'clock. So we might as well start talking Superboost stuff because
oh okay, yeah. So
I also
there was a topic for today. It's kind of like yeah, we had a topic.
no. I'm just saying it's weird because you know you have this hobby or profession or at least like you have this passion in your life, and you get into some like I the first time I went to Superbooth, I was excited. I never expected this to be like a historical thing for me. I never expected to actually host the event online. Somewhat, that's like a big hit, like a very nice thing to have done. But it actually felt reminiscent last time when we were doing the stream. I felt like, oh, this feels like it. It feels like a thing, like an event.
Ich kann nicht, Schatz. I have to take my daughter up. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
No,
out
no,
for a
it's okay.
second. You
no
have to
worries.
take over.
Yeah.
Totally fine. Let's jump Super Boost stuff. One thing
Yeah.
we didn't see that's been a big hit was the disting, Deus Ex Super Uber disting.
Okay. Let's start from there. Okay, cool. You start. Are you making a video for it?
Talking about it, I've had the easy way to put it, some family health stuff that's just completely wiped pretty much since Super Boost, some odd bits that wipe me out. But yeah, talking about it with Oz, I'd like to kind of deep dive on a stream with him and dive in. It's over there. Been testing for a little while, and I've not tested much for Oz before, but there are a couple of people, and I knew Oz would be like that, where really you just don't expect to find anything at all. In terms of testing, Emily at Mutable is another one where there's often comparatively little to find in terms of bug hunting.
Okay. Sorry.
I didn't explain that very well.
Yeah. We both did beta testing for Emily back in the day. The clouds and what was it? It was clouds and elements and a couple of things right at the same time.
Yeah, that era. And same with Oz. Like he's just so absolutely on it. But we're just talking about the disting. But the idea of a disting with a screen, so you're not remembering, I'm in mode 4A or 5B, which it's kind of fine because I think you just find yourself, a couple of modes that you like, and its price and its performance and its size validate that. If you had two distings that just stayed in two separate modes, totally cool because it's not super expensive. It performs really well in all its modes. It's a good amount of in and out for its size. But yeah, just have not a lot to add other than two distings with a screen and the addition of those kind of super modes, if you like, those dual modes that take up the whole interface.
Wait, isn't there like a multiphonic wavetable thing? Not the wavetable, like you can
The sample player.
Sample player, yeah, right. Which wasn't there before. That option wasn't there.
Yeah, and they teamed up with Spitfire Audio, so you've got a card of very nice samples to get going with. Very nice addition to a kind of modular sound palette. But yeah, there's a stereo Augustus Loop, I think he calls the software version, kind of tape delay looper.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. Yeah. It's an older one already.
Yeah, kind of ported across. Sounds very good. Really cool.
Have you, since we're talking about stuff like that, have you ever tried the wave edit thing that Paul made from Synthesis Technology for his modules? Have you tried that software?
Synth Edit.
Yeah, listen, is it? No, I think it's wave. Like, let me just check because I have it right here. It's wave edit from Synthesis Technology.
I'll drop a link in the chat for people. Yeah, made some wavetables for his oscillators with that.
Cool. It's one of my favorite things that I've tried because I didn't try it when it first came out. The reason I bring it up is because when I got the Disting Mark IV, the reason I wanted it was so I could put my own wavetables in it and use it as a wavetable oscillator. And Wave Edit is pretty amazing. It's a free software. Like it's a free software. It's super easy to use. You don't need to read anything. Like no manual, nothing. Super easy to use. Super easy to load wavetables. Super easy to just make your own wavetable oscillator out of it. And nice to fool around with. Like even if you don't have any specific plans. Heinbach, if you haven't tried it, it's a lovely software.
Can this be used to make wavetables for like any synthesizer or
Mm.
only for the? Oh, okay. Because yeah,
Anything.
I got this the Ovation Summit here, and that has
Yeah.
user wavetables now, and I'm so like looking forward to put test equipment wavetables in there and make
Mm.
this a raw
Yeah,
thing.
it's absolutely like this software is. I would pay money for it, and I'm not a
Yeah.
software guy. Like it's fantastic. It's intuitive. You just make the wavetables or load the one that you want, and then you can morph between them. You can change the speed of the morph. It's so easy. Like whoever made this needs a prize. Honestly.
I forget who
Super.
did it. Eric Brombaugh does a lot of the DSP for or with Paul.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he did the software. Maybe that's credited on the link somewhere. I've put a link in the description for anyone that's curious. It is Wave Edit, not Synth Edit, as you say. But yeah, it's really, really fantastic. Just a few basic tools for the curves you're drawing, and then sliders for what do they call it? Like the Chevy shaping, the harmonic shift, pre-gain, comb filtering, adding discontinuities into waves, limiting. Really, really nice. And just that having that simple preview as well, because there's some other
Fantastic.
editors that don't. The fact you can just go preview and it will just drone, and you can change the volume and the pitch, but you can
Yep.
just hear. It totally ties that visual, like having an oscilloscope on a modulator. It totally just ties in to all different ways of learning that people have, I think.
Yeah.
There's a big community there, or there was when it was released, because I said to
nice.
Paul, I've got some wavetables here. Kind of what's the deal? Like, I might just give them away on my Patreon, or like, are people charging for these? I wasn't trying to make like a wave sample pack or anything and charge for it. I was just curious. He went, just check out the, I don't know what the tab's called, community tab.
Okay.
It won't be called that, but there's a basically like a share tab, and you're like, oh god, there's loads. Like, people are going wild for sharing stuff. And what was really interesting when people talk about comparing like the piston Hondas with the E350s and things like that, you can design all that grit into the wavetables and then have them on the E350.
Oh,
You could,
nice.
I wonder if you could port them right across.
Yeah, you can. I think you can port stuff on the. You can obviously port stuff on the synthesis technology stuff, but you can also do that on the Piston Honda. Which version? I think someone mentioned on the chat about Mark III that they use it for Mark III Piston Honda. I don't know if you can do.
Andrew Belt from VCV Rack did Wave Edit. Thanks to those that mentioned that in the chat. A few people mentioned it. Yeah, pencil, brush, grab, line, eraser tools. It's really cool. It reminds me of my first days in Max MSP, of hearing a sound and just moving things to just fade a droning oscillator. I'd not touched an analog oscillator at the time, or a standalone one that wasn't in a synth with a keyboard attached. Yeah, really cool. Yeah, Heimbach, give us some test equipment wavetables.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That would be great.
Yeah. I mean, we got some on the fundamental, so but I can make some other ones definitely. So
I'm still looking into making that in hardware. That was yeah. That's lovely, man. Yeah. That's very nice software right there.
Yeah, we're advancing now with the patch. We get like the patch saving now. So and we got the bugs fixed from that. So now it's possible. So now some people have it for sound design to make Lightbath is making some sounds, and yeah. So this is gonna be. I'm really. Yeah, now it's getting really to the end, and we're just like fixing stuff. Ben, you tried it out, and you had some good suggestions that we immediately implemented, like the way to move like all the pitches with one turn. So you could do that before only in the harmonic mode, which would be a harmonic division. So you had a harmonic row, and then the master pitch would move all of them. But now that's applied to the custom frequencies too. And there's more. We got envelopes. It's very nice. So you can fade it in and fade it out, and you can change the shape of the envelope and the timing. And there's Sinan is super at work, and I think there's still some stuff to like fix and work out, but it's just getting more and more and more exciting and bigger, and I'm yeah, yeah, yeah.
For me, who as a noob for software, because I've only used like very little software. I started back with Reason 3, I think, but I'm not a big software guy by any
Yeah.
means. So is it a standalone thing? Is it something that I can buy and use as standalone on my laptop?
You can use it as standalone on your laptop. You can use it as standalone on your iPad. That will be a bit later, that version, because there's a whole process you have to go through with the App Store. It takes a bit longer, and you need to like adapt a few things. And then you can also use it as a plugin. And the plugin versions are now. That's I think like to get it working consistently across plugin platforms is something that Xenon is working also on right now. And yeah, I think everything looks still good for like end of May, first week of June or something release. But yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, I was gutted. I tried where to send. I think I'm having an issue with Soundflower, which is the virtual kind of sound driver, so you can route audio between apps. There's a few options now, but I tried routing out of the test version of Fundamental to Soundflower for QuickTime to pick it up, so I could do a quick screen capture because the preset saving wasn't implemented. A really amazing patch, and I mean amazing in what the software was giving me, not my own ego about the buttons I'd clicked. But it sounded really great. I'm just going to leave it running for 10, 12, 15 minutes. Went and made a drink, left it playing, came back. It was really, really nice. And I listened back to the QuickTime, and I'd already closed Fundamental, and it had gone. And I was
Soundflower works. It works now. We tried it. That works. That bug is fixed, and also like the preset saving. That's again like one of the things that's really hard with development stuff is software permissions. And that's something because you have to like especially on Mac, like everything is blocked, so it doesn't want you to do anything. So there are permissions that you have to like extra enable, like saving presets was one of those. So it worked on some machines but not on others. So it's all these things that you find out, and yeah, they're in the way of this. But
yeah,
but is it available? Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I was
no,
just
it's
going to
just
say
in beta. Just in beta. It's like, but the first beta is basically out since this week, and we're like, I think Xenon has since then done 2 new betas. And yeah.
all I was going to say, there's questions in the chat about any links to information on this. We discussed it on day 3 of the Superbooth streams. So I'll link the video. And what I've done for anyone that either did watch live or missed it entirely, the top pinned comment. So if you just scroll down under any of the Superbooth streams, I've left a comment time-stamping where every single guest came in. So if you're like, oh man, what did Retro Kits say? You can just look and go. You don't even have to look at the time and do it yourself. Just click the timeline link.
Yeah.
Unrelated YouTube question, well, we're just kind of here. Has anyone seen the actual timeline on the video change to feature your timestamps?
Yeah, I told you last time during, I think it was day 3, that it changes and now it's cut for each timestamp. You don't remember, right?
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and then I never saw it and forgot about it. And then Robin Vincent from Malta Music Tech went, Ben, how are you doing this on YouTube? Like, where's this setting to tick?
Yeah.
Because if you put the timestamp with colons in, so if you wanted an hour and 10, 0, 1, colon 10, and 0, 0 for 0 seconds, that will automatically hyperlink the time. So, which is what we've done here. There's a comment where you can go and click. But what it does when it's in the video description, and I think they're only testing on certain accounts, as you scroll along the bottom of a YouTube video, it's like bookmarks on a properly authored DVD in a DVD player. And Robin sent me a screenshot. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like you can scroll through and be like, that's where he mentions AM. That's where he talks about this. That's where I'm like, I can't do that, nor can I see it. But it's cool that it's probably coming. I think Vimeo has done it for some time.
Okay, I mean, if any platform does something cool, like one of the big guys is going to jump on it and just copy it.
It's the same thing with the audio software, right? Like for a period, I think like whatever new thing came for one software, after a couple of iterations, you saw it on another one, right?
Yeah. Dark Sparkler says Loopop's recent videos have it. I can't see it. So what tends to happen with YouTube, I'm quite defensive of YouTube sometimes when people kind of say, oh, they're doing all this stuff with the algorithm and no one knows what's going on. If you follow their Creator Academy, for anyone that's curious, they're fairly open about what they're doing. They come on camera. It's fairly well shot, fairly well recorded. Just this is what we're testing this week. We're rolling out these features for accounts of, more than 1 million subs. We're testing this, and then we're randomly testing something else on somewhere else. They're fairly open about it. So it shouldn't be too long before we all see that feature, I would imagine. I can't see them on my own videos or anyone else's at present.
Okay.
Yeah, that's weird. Maybe I watch too much YouTube, so I have access to, because I have no videos of my own. But when I see other people's videos, I can see that the change there. I saw it like a couple. I think it's been a few weeks there. So
because it copies in the text you put in as well. It's not just a time, like a dotted timestamp.
No. It's a text is there.
I'll have to check.
So for us, it's great because
it,
if people can see it, they can literally scroll along, be like, Retro Kit, Sonic Labs, DPW. It's just cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, I definitely don't see it yet.
Anyway.
But Super Booth.
I have another thing.
We are allowed to go off topic. We are allowed to go off topic. I think we were so focused on that during the Super Booth streams that now to recap here is just, it's nice to go off topic and talk about, and then come back, of course. But
one thing. Sorry.
One last thing. I realized now after doing these, I feel like, like in a role-playing game when you level up, I feel like I leveled up like endurance. Endurance and there was such a, it feels different now to do this now. Just this is a nice chat, maybe 2-3 hours, doesn't mean anything, it's fun. It's not like, after this like this big hosting thing was that's different thing. It's good.
So this is very chill by comparison, right?
Yeah, and you went on stream right after, so you were on the Sonic State stream the next day.
Yeah, it was an hour. It felt like just waving hello in the street and walking away. Exactly. It felt like such a quick hello to Bo and Nick, and Robin joined us. I think Nick, bless him, was really, really kind of shocked by because Nick went the other route to us, and he was, I think, in a bit of a tech hell of trying to film things and kind of do them like what they do for booth videos. There's a lot of nice videos from Sonic and some nice product features as well for different companies, but I think a more drawn out, long experience.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a very quick stream
compared to everything.
Yeah. I see. Sorry, I'm just more people in the chat saying if you hover your mouse over, you can see it in the titles. Yeah, I can't yet. We all will soon enough, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. Someone said it's a Chrome thing, maybe.
Probably it would make sense that they do
Chrome?
it in their own browser.
Yeah. Are you using Chrome?
I'm gonna do now.
Okay.
Could be.
I'm gonna go look.
Could be, because I think I am using Chrome on when it comes to watching YouTube videos. So
yeah,
it
all
could
of that
be
stuff. There's, I mean, like I switch between 3 browsers for whatever I do. So yeah, there's some sites that just don't work with Chrome, like some banking sites and stuff that just no working.
Really?
Yeah.
Anyway,
German banks and like and postal stuff. Yeah, it's sometimes a bit of a hassle.
Yeah. No, still not working in Chrome. Just to quickly answer that.
Oh, okay.
For me.
They geo-blocked you.
It will.
You don't get it. You don't get it. No. No.
They're angry
that channel memberships. Do you have that enabled on your? Can you do that on your channel?
No, I had someone ask when they were giving super chats to this channel for Super Booth, and I did the Feeding the Monster streams. Why I didn't have super chats enabled? I'm with I think they're called an MCN, like a management thing. I joined early on.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whether I should be, but just kind of as we're just sharing stories, a company called Quarter Lab got in touch. The story seemed a bit like one of those too good to be true, like, hey, I'm a big fan of synths and I'm into electronic music and I love what you're doing and we want to manage this, and you're always just like, yeah, whatever, just go away. And it said, we're already starting to look at managing some other channels, some that we would know very well that we've maybe already mentioned today, but not up to me to kind of say how they work publicly. But so I messaged these people. I was like, just got this email that I think's rubbish saying that they look after your stuff. Should I do it? And they were like, oh yeah, they have. And there's been a bit of an increase in kind of Google AdSense. I was like, all right, yeah, why not? And I entered into an agreement where I could back out at any time. Their terms were a year or 2. And I said, I don't want to, sign anything with you've approached me, so the worst that's going to happen is you don't do anything, and I have a fear of missing out, maybe. But
Yeah.
so I can't enable any of that, annoyingly. Then there's some I'll lose. It's not like views would disappear, but I'll lose a lot of analytics if we shift kind of the back end of my channel around. So I can't have the merchandise bar that you have.
Oh, okay.
Which is cool. So these are all reasons to potentially leave this thing.
Yeah.
Long story short, I can't have super chat.
Okay.
And I don't manage my own monetization. Other than I can turn it on and off. You know, videos don't have to have ads on. I can turn that off, which I do, and then share them on Patreon and things like that. But yeah, so it's kind of all that back end is managed elsewhere. So I can't enable any of that.
Crazy. That feels really.
It's mainly your channel. I see the merch bar and I'm like, man, I've got some t-shirts. Why can't I put my t-shirts on there?
Yeah.
It starts to kind of annoy me. But to be fair, they've been very good.
Okay.
There was a hell of a lot of advice early on, tags, all that kind of thing.
Oh no! Is he gone?
Yeah. Who? Me?
Konstantine? Do you see Ben?
Yeah, I see both of you, and you sound okay.
Yeah.
And Ben too.
Maybe you're having that problem that you had last time with me, that I suddenly dropped off. He's right there.
I was going to say looking pretty, but it's debatable. But yeah,
sorry,
annoying.
You just dropped off.
You both look great. Go on.
Annoyingly, yeah, I can't enable any of that. I need to look into it all and kind of, pros and cons and all that stuff. But yeah, okay. Super chat.
Drop a t-shirt link. Someone just said drop a t-shirt link and do that. Come on, a little bit self-promotion. That's fine.
The modular curiosity t-shirt is the one everyone should buy. That's the best one. We're all modular
curiosity. Oh, that sounds that sounds very.
It's very typical. Words and phrases tend to do better. It's managed by, he looks after Bo Beats t-shirts as well. A guy in Sheffield called Steve Holmes. Really nice person. Did a lot of artwork for Synfest, the kind of bigger UK synth event. And he was doing merchandise. Said, you've got this logo and this character and there's stuff we can do together. And I was like, is it print on demand, or are you trying to get me to buy big bulks of t-shirts? And I've done both in the past. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to do a big run of t-shirts and then take them off on tour and sell them all. They're a hell of a lot cheaper. And I was like, I've done print on demand before, Spreadshirt and some of these other ones, and they're rubbish after you've washed them like 3 or 4 times. And he was like, let me find some that have been washed like 10 plus times that I've had for 6 months or more. And they were great, very nice fabric, all ethical. And he's like, well, there's no harm and there's no price, and so no risk. So yeah, Steve Holmes. It's on his website, as people will see.
Cool.
Handles
very
it.
Nice.
Which also means there's lots of options, because I don't end up with like 50 small red male t-shirts that never sell.
Yeah.
Which we've had that one on touring bands a few times. Like, man, why does no one want the navy blue one? Just can't shift them. And it's always like an odd normal. It's not like you've made a crazy like bright yellow and pink one and you're like, all right, I get why the white on black t-shirt has sold, but the crazy pink one didn't. We'd always be left with some odd thing,
Same here. It was always like, and I remember like we did one run of the first t-shirts with our band, and I think it was 50 each, but it was 5 different colors. And I was always doing the merch because I love talking to people, same as I do now. I just loved, sit by the merch and then blah, blah, blah after the show. But for the life of me, was which is which shirt and which is what. I had such a hard time with that. And then I learned from Nathan Moody, who mastered my new album also, how to actually do that. And that's just like tie them all. Just have them, have them tie them, roll them up, and then put a little tie around it with a size. And that's it. Works really well. Works amazing well. He gave me 2 hours. Like, this is such a good idea. Why didn't I just think of that? But that's really, instead of like having them folded up. So that's a good tip. So if you're doing merch on shows, just roll them up, put a little tie around it with what it is, and save space, and works.
The chat room, Konstantine says, you wanted to say something a few minutes ago. They're curious as to what that was.
I don't remember, but I'm a patient guy. But I think what I wanted to go was into the stuff that we've missed from Super Booth, because I really have one thing in mind that I'm a bit bummed that we didn't get Joe Mox on the stream. Didn't even cross my mind that they would have something new because you know of the resonator, right? The
Yeah,
resonator
I
box.
had the T resonator. Yeah, I had that.
Yeah. Okay. So they have a new version which is also a looper.
Oh,
Have you even looked into it?
I'm gonna do now, and I'll put the link in
Yeah.
the chat when I find it. Just on their
You-
website or Instagram, or where did you see it?
I think no, I saw it on the actual Superbooth page because he sent a
Okay.
video to. I think he's German, right? So he sent a video to Schneider's. But he made a couple of videos, which I'm sure, sorry to say, and Jomox, if you see that, I'm really sorry, but the demos were awful. The product is super interesting though. So it has a limiter because so he added a limiter there because it's famous for being like it can really scream. And now
I
it has
saw
MIDI,
shows that were ruined due to that. Really
Yeah.
horrible.
so MIDI input, MIDI output, I think, looper. It can play samples now. It can record stuff and save them. It has a very small LCD screen or a LED screen on there. It's like pretty. It's like new level Jomox thing, and that's the one thing that I'm bummed that we didn't show on the stream. I was like, oh god, this is super way out there now.
Oh, they've not done their homework like we did. Their timestamps, which I'm scrolling through on the Superbooth site, don't list it.
I just saw it. I just googled it. It's on Amazona.de.
Right, okay.
Oh, it's in
I'll find it
German.
then.
Analog
No.
effects.
He did a couple of videos on his own studio.
okay.
So I'll find it from the Schneider's thing. And
Yeah.
post.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. I think like I had the original one, I had the Mark II, and I think mine was broken from the start because when I tried to sell it, the guy said, "Oh, there's some noise that's not supposed to be there." And I said, "Really? Yeah, there's noise that's not supposed to be there." So I took it back, which is kind of, I don't know, for a second-hand sale, but I took it back and then I brought it to Jürgen and he actually fixed it. And he said it was a broken microcontroller, but then I just sold it again because I had then since like started with the put everything in one modular box approach of how I do sound treatment, and I sold it, but it's such a wild thing. So this one, interesting.
Wild is a good-
Sorry, Konstantine.
No, I'm just saying that wild is a good word for it. It's a really good word for it. This is a notoriously wild pedal. The only standalone device. The only downside for the new design is that he has added like foot pedal switches on it. Although it's obviously like a thing that you would put on a table, but for the looping function and stuff like that, he has like pedal switches, which I don't think is a good thing to use your hand on. It's like click,
No,
click.
that's annoying. Unless they're soft touch. Soft touch are fine.
Yeah.
But still, right?
know,
Like
You get those plastic things, don't you, for operating pedals on tables? They're about a euro a piece, I think, from I can't remember who makes them. Soft Touch.
Okay.
Like a kind of rubber puck that you put over the pedal, and is apparently much nicer. If anyone would like to buy some discontinued Jomox gear,
Yeah. You've got stuff to sell. An M-Brain.
Yeah, I'm part joking. I mean, it is for sale. If anyone wants an M-Brain, let me know. But yeah, just sampled it, been having fun. It's a great device, actually. Percussion synthesizer, lots of parameters to adjust. Some deep kind of dual sine wave pings, which is quite nice, like a weirdly AM'd kind of 808 kick. It had that, much like the things you do with test equipment, it's got that low pinged sine thing. I mean, it's
Cool.
a cleaner
Lovely.
sine. It's not normal, but it will AM and get nasty, and great for percussion, and then noise sources and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I had fun with it. And then I was like, now I've sampled it and put like a whole day into pulling all these sounds out, I'm probably never going to use it again. It does respond to MIDI over all this stuff, but I've had it a hell of a long time. Yeah.
Someone in the chat, Feral Machine, asked us about like our thoughts on the no control. I mean,
yes,
I've got a bunch of thoughts on it because I've got it here and I made a video on it. So, but yeah,
I want to hear your thoughts. I'm super like okay. You showed. I watched the video a couple of times,
A
and
couple of times. Thank you.
okay. And here's the thing. Okay, let me
Okay.
start from there. First thing, I'm not a big make noise fan. So contrary to most modular users, especially like old school ones, because I consider myself old school since I've been doing the Eurorack thing for more than 10 years, I never had a maths.
Okay.
I didn't until about a year ago, and I was getting flamed for it.
Funny.
I had one since 2011.
Yeah.
It was very good to have it. Very good.
Yeah. No, it's not my thing. I have a couple of their modules which I love, but I'm very specific on like I have a Misteron, right? Because it makes really good string sounds.
That's
cello
a
sound.
discontinued one, right? Discontinued.
Probably, yeah. Which is a pity because it's a lovely module, very underrated in my opinion. Anyway, I like their modules. It's just that they don't always bring something to the table that I'm fond of. But this one, I'm like, yes, please. It looks super good. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, like in the live stream.
There's two things that I really like about it, and the first thing is that like the touch plates, they are really good. They work really well. They are super playable. I could never play like pressure points like this, or pressure points always for me, or usually for me, was either on or off, and there was never this put more flash onto it, get more signal. That hardly ever worked. And I put it down it worked in the Döpfer case with a linear supply, but it didn't work on the one with the Zeus, and it was or Zeus, and it was always a bit finicky to get that touch control really working. And the funny thing is that the second thing that I like about this is the thing that I always used pressure points and brains anyway for, is this has 3 rows. And I used to have pressure points and brains. So I would have like maths first out would be like would be the clock, and would go tuck, 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 tuck. And then it would clock the sequencer, pressure points and brains. And then the last row I would send to the decay of maths. So I could set basically different swings and different like timings on the clock.
Yeah.
And that was just that was such a good way to get what Nav's module lab we mentioned before called shonky beats, like beats that are off kilter and are a little like, okay, how can I count this? I'll just feel it. And that's basically now integrated into this, because you've got the time row that will set the timing of each step. And then you've got the strength also, and this time and strength combined to the dynamic gate and dynamic envelope. So you get a very nice signal to trigger other stuff like VCAs with that, because it takes the length and the intensity and calculates basically an envelope out of that, or a gate, which makes for, when you trigger something like the no coast with it, awesome control. And in general, I like the form factor. It's just tiny, it's lightweight, and it's 15 volts. And we need to have like Ripcord. They should do, Ripcord is the company, right? Like with the
My Volts.
My Volt.
Ripcord.
My Volt. This Ripcord is the thing, and My Volts. They don't have a 15 volt version right?
I think they do now. You know, My Volts. Super shout out to My Volts. Every single power question answered, done, job done. They have a thing.
Okay.
Super supportive. No, you're right. They don't. 9 volts. 12 and 18, weirdly. No 15
So we
volt
need
Ripcord.
something for 15 volts, because that's what I've been seeing a lot more, is of devices powered by 15 volts instead of 12 or 9. So then this could be a very nice portable thing, because right now you need, of course, a power supply, and it doesn't run off a regular power bank. So yeah, pricing on this is $400 as far as I know, and it's going to be released in 2 weeks or something. And manual should also be out soon. The one that I still have is like a lot of question marks in there and like unfinished patch examples. So yeah, I tried hard to find something bad with it, and I thought it was like the touch that didn't really work, but then I put just a screwdriver in there, adjusted it, fine. There's really...
Yeah, that was a fun part of your video. Where you go back in time and do that was like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah. there's nothing bad. There's really nothing bad if you can live with having only raw CV and and not pitched. I mean, I got comments like on my video that said, "Oh, what's this analog sequencer? Only 8 steps, costs 400. Get a squab instead." And people there are people I knew that people would hate this, like that there's no quantization. So I tried to do the test, and it takes me about a minute or a minute and a half to set like a sequence if I've got a chord going and stuff like that. That it's kind of in pitch. That's like 95% in pitch. So that was a good test for me to see how possible is that.
Wait, so there's no way to put this in a Euro case, you think? Like if it's 15 volts?
You can hack it. Not from 12-volt power, but the no coast also isn't Eurorack compatible, but it is the right height. So people, if you hack off the DC inlet on the side, you can do, if you want to basically break your no coast, you can do it. There are no coasts out there in Eurorack, and I would imagine this is exactly the same, but it's not specifically not meant as a Eurorack module. I saw Tony mention that to Nick on Sonic State, because I'd watched, of course, your video, Heimbach and others, which I really enjoyed. And then I thought, I didn't get to see Tony at Super Booth. Nick's done one. I can kind of just listen to Tony take Nick's questions for 10 minutes. So I watched that one too. Tony said you could hack the voltage for 12 volts. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. The reason I'm asking was because Heimbach on his video brought up a really good idea that this would pair nicely with a O-coast and make something like easel. Yeah, but the idea of having both on the same case, I kind of felt like it's something that opens up exactly. And then my idea was like, what else would I need? This is like an old school concept, right? Like you have the O-coast and you have this one, so it's like an old school easel and a small format, pretty new, but. And then I'm thinking, a morphogene. So now you have tape. And then what else can I put there?
Okay.
I didn't go far because I know how Eurorack works. But the thing that I liked, it was the coma effects, right? So you had a spring reverb, the PT delay.
Coma effects, works well.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like these 4 in the morphogene, and you have space for a couple of things. I'm not going to go in there. These would be so nice in a small case, like a very... like
that's a holiday setup. Perfect. Like a live setup for it's just it's a good idea. Zenon is in the chat, and he hacked his no cost on the rack. Lovely. Nice. Hey Zenon.
That it reminds me of when you went kind of small format easel. I don't know if you can buy it in that format anymore, but the Voltage Research Lab from Pittsburgh that they had at Super Booth and that kickstarted. I've got the Lifeforms Research Lab, Lifeforms Voltage Lab, which is just the top voice. And I think you may be able to get the TKB-esque controller at some point, but I don't think you can get it in that Synthy style two-row case anymore. But yeah, that would be pretty nice. You can bypass the regulator for power, and you can cack it, apparently. So
Jason Hoffman has got a good idea. How about a pair of computer speakers like the Syntrax?
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, speakers. I love it. I mean, the Syntrax speakers. I still have to. I've now finished the album, so now I can have a bit more authority on the Syntrax, so I can make like a better overview video of it. And the one thing that I notice is how great the speakers are. It's just lovely. But that's to have like just a speaker is so halfway decent speaker. Such a good thing.
Even the silly little speakers in like the Korg Volkers, which are not decent speakers at all.
Helps.
But
it just helps.
It helps.
Yeah, I remember talking with Gaz Williams about this, that just I can grab it, very quickly get something going. You know the instrument. I know what the kick drum sounds like. I don't have to hear its low end if I'm just quickly on my knee doing something and then want to plug it in and catch a loop. Yeah, nice. Even the pocket operators just making sounds themselves. It's great.
No, but it's nice. I mean, I have the Vulcan mix, which I stupidly used on a live set a couple of times. It freaks out. Don't do that. It's not meant for live. But having that Yeah. Okay. So it just midway. That's a quick story. Midway it goes and dies. But being like somewhat experienced with life, I just didn't do anything. I knew that I had to turn everything down, then turn it back on, and it would just get alive again. And the sound engineer freaks out. It's like, what's going on? Did he do that on purpose? So he starts walking towards me to just ask me, and then I just turn everything on and go, and everything goes back online. It was, yeah. So don't use the Volca mixer on a live session. It's not a good idea. But what I was getting at was that the two speakers that it has on it, super useful because everyone else could not hear the set. Like, whereas I could go on my table and just turn these on and make sure that everything is on tune and everything works. So nice to have. But I have a box here that I wanted to show you because talking about the zero control, this is the reason why I love the zero control. The Arrhythmia module, which is not a module that a lot of people have from Plankton Electronics, which is a very shaky clock module, right? So it's exactly the same premise as the
Okay.
control, zero control. Like you change the rate and then you can change the timing between each step. But this is just a clock, right? So the fact that the zero control actually does that, that's a big selling point for me. The fact that you can actually move. So it's 8 steps, but not really, right? Because if you can move the time between each hit,
it's more.
It's far more. It sounds more. And the most musical thing, like you can actually have real phrases.
Yeah. That's the thing. The only thing, like that timing roll, when you clock it externally, it won't do that thing.
Yeah, that just becomes a standard CV row you can patch out then, right? It's just another row of voltages to turn knobs.
And that's the reason why I tried it as the master. You have to use it as the master, and I was able to get with a small setup a lot of things going, which astounded me, which I was really hoping for, that I could do that, using it even to control the summit and get something musically useful out of that with just a CV in, that one CV in. That was really fun. So it can be, at least if you get a drum machine with its own sequencer and you get a no coast or another mono and one synthesizer that has pads and has CV in, you can use it to control all these things, and it works beautiful and have a little very live playable setup already. Nothing bad about this thing to say. It's just if you're into that, and of course pairs well with something like SQ1 that will do the pitch stuff.
Yeah, a quick thing on tuning for people with any analog step sequencer. I'm comparing the zero control or no control to pressure points and how I use that, or others really. But pressure points, the top row is 0 to 8 volts, the bottom two are 0 to 5. So in terms of musical pitch, that's 8 octaves and 5 octaves of range. So simply going into an attenuator buys you fine control. So I will patch an output into an attenuator and turn the knob up full on the sequencer. So I'm at full voltage level. And then I'll just attenuate down to the highest note I'm going to want. Tends to be about 2 octaves if I'm writing like a bass riff or a melody. And then all of that knob range is within 2 octaves rather than 5 or 8. And it affords so much additional fine tune. And it's something that when I do one-to-one sessions with people or just chat about modular stuff, it always comes up. It's taking me too long to jam on these. It's like you need to force some fine control in there. I found the other day that it was, what was I modulating? And I just couldn't get even whispering on the attenuator was from off to wobbling like mad. I went through 2 attenuators and turned them right down so that the actual CV attenuator on the module I could turn and had some control. I can't remember what it was now. I was doing something weird, but I was just like, well, I've got attenuation. I'll just run through lots of them if I have to. It must have been from the dead point to being on. A bit like how guitar amps used to be too quiet at 1. I used to find old Fender amps like this, but absolutely blasting your head off at 2.
Yeah, definitely.
That kind of thing where you're like, I can't sit in this range. So yeah, chaining attenuators. is useful.
The other thing that you can do with sequencers, which I don't know if this thing is like pretty common knowledge, but I haven't seen it that much. It's a very typical trick for polyphony. What you can do, if you have a multiple quantizer, one thing that you can do is get one sequence into like different attenuators, right? So the same sequence is now going to get attenuated differently, and then pass it through quantizers and have that play your voices. So now you have related voltages coming out of one sequence, and now you have very quick polyphony that you can fool around with. And it's super easy and super nice to just tweak. Always stays musical.
It's really cool because you're affecting the range and not the offset. So it's not like you're taking a root note and adding a fifth or a third because you've added a step. So what weirdly happens, and it's really cool, and inverters then change that behavior as well.
Exactly.
Your higher notes have a wider interval because you take a sequence that's doing this and make it do that.
Yeah.
So your lower notes are like thirds and fourths and fifths maybe, and then the higher notes are like an octave up plus intervals in the quantizer. That's a really interesting, odd. I didn't know what was going on the first time I heard that in a patch. It's just like I don't think I've ever played an instrument where the higher the pitch, the wider the chord intervals are. It's just such an odd concept, but really cool. And like you said, you only need a few different attenuators to do it, and of course a multi-channel quantizer.
It's not necessarily, depending on what type of music you play, right?
Well, yeah, maybe you don't need to quantize it.
Now with drones, this works really nicely. I'm not a big drone fan, but with CV2 Media, I already have the quantization there, at least the 12 tag quantization.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, which actually brings me to something that I spoke with Heimbach earlier today. Different tuning things, right? 12 tag, just intonation and stuff like that. You were interested in that.
Yeah, I was really interested in trying out more of just intonation because basically I've been in this, I tune everything myself so long, this world, that when I'm only playing synthesizers and test equipment and stuff like that, and most of these have no keyboards, I tune very cleanly, very nicely, not and then when I have to incorporate a piano, it becomes okay, so now I need to change, and I need to adjust the tuning, same as you would like as a cello player has to intonate differently when he's playing with a piano. So that's something that made me really interested, and I got this also because we just implemented Scala import on Fundamental.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it means like you can have all these different tunings readily available and scales. It's just, and then there's now all these functions where you can modulate the pitch, but the scale will quantize it, so it starts to all these auto-generated melodies, which couldn't be before. But every time I go into tunings, it's always mind blowing, and how they are. What's it called? A trade-off between the possible and how everybody can speak together, and how important suddenly the piano and how ruling it became. So, in that regard.
Yeah, but it's okay. So my favorite type of scaling, like tuning thing, is obviously the 12-10 thing. I don't know if people know the differences between the different tuning systems. Well, there's a bunch, right? Like there's
Give us a primer. Give us a primer.
Very quickly, without going into too much detail, because although I know this is the place where we can nerd out about things, the whole idea is exactly the same thing with, like, we were discussing the same idea, the same concept as we were discussing with the attenuation, right? It's like differences in, like, where do you go with an incoming sequence? How far do you go? How the different pitches. But the thing with the 12-10 is that each thing, the whole range is just cut into equal pieces, which are semitones. The just intonation tuning, the difference is it's based on the harmonic series, right? So when you start like from a fundamental frequency, and then you just go and do divisions of that to get the other frequencies. So when you hear the just intonation, it sounds really nice. There's no bumping between the frequencies because it's perfect divisions. The thing is, with 12th TED, in order to make everything fit, and I'll tell you why they made that fit. They just had to move everything just a bit, and now you get the frequencies which just bump into each other because they don't sit perfectly. The reason they did that because with just intonation you can't do transpositions. Well, you can up to a point, but you can move freely from one key
On
to another.
fretted instruments. On fretted instruments.
Unfretted instruments like the
Or like
piano, right?
piano, yeah, basically. But you can do it like with voice and with stringed instruments easily.
Yeah, but yes and no, right? Like even with some instruments like the unfretted one, you would still might like depending on the exact key and stuff, you might need to move some things or tune to make sure that you're playing key. So a very typical example for this situation, because it still exists in the modern orchestra, is that a violin section would play differently if there's a piano playing in the orchestra.
I've experienced that. It's grating. It's grating. Like until they get together, it's a grating experience. That was the score that we worked on, and the part where the piano and the strings was, whoo, that took some time. But then it worked. But then it worked really well at some point. But it took some time.
Yeah, they kind of like I think they bring stuff like more flat. I don't remember exactly, but they kind of make things. They change how they put their fingering on the finger. Sorry, if anyone playing violin watches this, I'm sorry for using wrong terms, but they just make things just a tiny bit to fit on what the piano is playing. The thing is, all intonations are fantastic. Each thing has its use, but I don't get why people make a huge bash about the 12th TED. Oh, it doesn't sound good. I love beaten frequencies. I love the imperfections that the 12th TED system has, and the fact that it's structured in a way that it helps tonal music. So, but everything has its own use. And nowadays we have this super fantastic option of like, oh, you know what? Digital systems. I'm going to play in that key. I'm just going to press one thing, and now you can play just intonation and do transpositions, I guess. So
that's even like I read up on that in the Wikipedia article, and there was just like one sentence where you can see that it's Wikipedia is sometimes written by amateurs, and it was like, digital keyboards now have one button where you can change the tuning in one go. It's like, okay, that's nice information, but it's really like, which one? What do you mean? It was really just. My keyboard has it, so I write it in this article, kind of thing.
If you can, I don't know if you can see it. I don't mean to play it. I just mean so that people can see this instrument. Can you see my screen that I'm sharing? This is an excellent video I've linked in the description. It looks like Lego, but if they play the middle button across that keyboard, it's kind of standard tuning. 12th tuning, just split, good to work across all different keys. And they explain that listening to like a root and a third together, a major third, which would be seen as a very consonant, very nice, musical, melodic, not melodic, but normal, kind of safe, comfortable, bright sounding harmony, that really just making it, I think they make it slightly flat, as you say, Konstantine. I'd have to watch to be totally sure. The note will sit way better if it's just slightly out. And what's happening on that instrument, I'm sure as they go up vertically up the screen on those buttons, it's getting increasingly slightly sharp each time, and then flat down. And just by moving around the keyboard, and when they start playing some more interesting chord voicings and going, watch what happens when I move my middle finger up a bit, and you're like, oh wow, this now sits beautifully. And they're chord tones that, you know, playing piano and guitar, a lot of us are very familiar with, and we think they're nice consonant harmony, and you realize, oh, they're not. On a guitar you could bend a string slightly if a slightly sharper version would let you get into a more kind of in tune nice interval. But I'll put this link in the chat one more time. It's when we're finished, that's the video people should go watch.
I love that video.
Really,
I love
really
that,
good.
and I love that instrument. I mean, it's really, when I first saw that, it just seems so logical. Do they still make these? I don't think so, right?
I'm not sure. Is it the H Pi tonal plexus microtonal keyboard. I've never seen one other than
Yeah,
this
I've never
video.
seen one in real life. It just looks so. I mean, you can understand it by looking in it, which is something that I
Yeah.
really enjoy, and it seems a lot of fun.
So a couple of points. So I got into micro tuning a lot at some point. Mostly, one thing that I really want to drop here is that there's a really good book, if you're at all interested in this, by William Setharis called Tuning Timbre Spectrum Scale. This is it's a fairly expensive book, but if you're interested in these kind of things, yeah, I'll put a link on the chat for sure.
Please in the chat. Yeah, that sounds something I would love to read right now.
Yeah, I'll definitely copy and paste that in the chat in just a second. The other thing is because I worked with what's the name on this thing? Let me just unplug everything, which is a super interesting device, Midi Hub. If you haven't checked this one,
Midi Hub.
It's like 4 inputs, 4 outputs, and it does all kinds of things. It's from these guys called Blocas. Totally worth your time because it does a bunch of MIDI effects, like the pyramid stuff that you can pull off. It can merge, your standard MIDI box, but it has all kinds of cool stuff, including micro tuning. Because I insisted when I was beta testing on this that they include micro tuning. So if you're into this stuff, it incorporates pitch bends per channel, so you can do micro tuning. So nice thing to keep in mind. I really love the whole idea of being able to micro tune things. So read the book, get some stuff that you can micro tune with. It's a huge rabbit hole, though.
Yeah, it is. But I'm really interested because many manufacturers, not many. I mean, when you think about something like the Kniphonium, that's meant to be just tuning, right? Because he wanted to play also his Baroque music with that and with string quartet and stuff like that. So he wanted to be really perfect in that regard. And then there's stuff like the Trautonium, of course, which is also just temperament. And when he had to play with a pianist, he had to adapt to that. And there's a great channel on the Trautonium, the Trautonist, German channel, where they visit, and there's lots of information on Oskar Sala, who played the Trautonium, which is a lovely instrument. And there's one part where you can see him in his later years, and he uses Ibanez, I think D1000 or something, pitch shifters to tune to get the thirds into his chords, and then he would tune, and you could see how he pulled them down so they fit into the tuning. He pulled them down by cents compared to the third that they were supposed to be in from the preset, basically. So he pulls it a few cents down, and then it fits into the just intonation better. Because the thirds are always stretched. I think the major, for the what's it called? The main tuning now, equal tempered.
Equal temperament.
You make the major terz, the große terz. What do you say? German has such very precise musical terms, and it's hard. Terz. What's the terz? The third, major third. It's a little stretched to the top, and the minor is stretched downwards to make everything fit. So, and when you pull that back down again, you can hear it just becomes a little nicer. And you can hear that in the context of the Trautonium, which is really lovely. And if you see that channel Trautonist, it's such a rabbit hole. And that was something I went into yesterday. This is good stuff.
I think for many of us, when we're tuning just oscillators, we naturally just find the tuning anyway.
Yeah.
As you say, it's very clean tuning.
Yeah.
If I want intervals, I very rarely tune to anything because 90% of my work is just me on the modular. So it's kind of don't have to. I'll tune it to itself within its own system. But when a quantizer tells me that the notes C, G, and B flat are active, they're nowhere near that. They're just at whatever pitch I thought the oscillator sounded good at. It's like, right, there's where I want to tune. It's very much a feeling and emotive thing. That's where it sits. And then I'm just thinking of intervals on top of that. And if I'm just tuning them myself, it's all kind of really nicely tuned in. I wonder if something like I only say this because they've got software editors, things like TC's Brainwaves pitch shifter. I wonder if you could, because you can flash your phone into those things. I wonder if some of those type of pedals will enable you to shift off of normal intervals.
I mean, the HD1000 can enable that, and many of the older school, like full-fledged thingies can. And even something like the Boss PS2 pitch shifter, like the simple one, it's got an unlimited mode where you can like nudge everything as you want. Really interesting. Okay. I mean, it's not as fun because like it's a huge amount for a tiny knob basically, but it works well and lovely in that regard, I think. And I'm in love with harmonizers and pitch shifters anyway since forever. There's been these are like instruments that you put something in and they give you back more. And yeah, that's the things that I completely love.
And I mean, you have people like Aphex Twin who always played stuff and it was kind of out of tune. Like he's I think I was reading an interview, but you can never take Richard's interviews like too hard. It's not, he always fools around with what he's saying. He was saying that he hears things differently, and that's why he detunes stuff. Like it sounds good in his ears, but it was always out of tune, which I appreciated. I liked the fact that stuff sounded wobbly, and the whole idea that the pitch perfect, the how is it called? Perfect hearing.
Perfect pitch.
Perfect pitch. Yeah.
Perfect pitch. It's not perfect pitch. It's pitch memory, right? You remember exactly what the pitch is supposed to be. And I've met a couple of people that had this amazing skill, but it's pitch memory. They've memorized the exact pitches, so stuff will sound out of tune for them. But what's the right tuning and what is not? Like if you base it on just intonation, these guys are totally out of tune.
Yeah, well, I mean, historically, orchestras in different countries were all based on different tuning standards.
Yeah.
It was all brought into a standard. I can't remember the exact year, but we were all tuning to different notes around the world before it became a standard. It's just, someone mentioned that Robert Rich always tunes his system before kind of playing a first note. Yeah, I kind of said this in the chat. That's totally fine too. You start picking up a guitar, tuning it, then playing the first chord. But if it feels right to me and it's not going to be played with anything else. I mean, I've annoyed myself in the past where I remember what the intervals on the quantizer were and they're nowhere near. Yeah. And then I have to rework other material to get in tune with it. Then of course I'll tune to something definite. But yeah, I mean, test equipment, take it even further. I don't imagine you're going, let me get into C before I start making a note. Like it's where it feels good.
Yeah, what I then do is like, even if the piano is out of tune, I put the piano on a tape and then I pitch the piano to where it works. So it go the other way around. But that was something, like the whole thing that I realized why I'm interested. I realized it just now is because of the album that I made where I made syntracks and piano together. So I constantly tuned the oscillators on the syntracks so they sounded perfect to me. And then I played them with the piano. I was like, this is off key. Why is it off key? So, and then I realized, I need to tune that oscillator a bit more to the piano. So I always needed to retune to fit the piano what else my idea of pitch would have been. And I probably have to discuss that a bit with my piano tuner. So, but I want to experiment with it more and get a more informed idea about what exactly I want my piano to sound. And it was interesting to see how my perception of this is a good interval differs from the way it was tuned on the piano. So I think that's where that whole thing comes from. And at some point I was thinking the oscillators, they're not stable on the syntracks, but they are. It's just that the pitch on the piano is different and it works different.
I remember I was reading like an Animal Collective. They made the Fields album. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Animal Collective. There's an American band, not folk. They're kind of weird. They have their own thing, and they made the album Fields, and it was kind of based on a piano that they had at home. And then they moved, and they had a really good piano. The whole thing was out of tune, but they started recording stuff, and they wanted that exact sound of the out of tune piano. So they have the recordings that go in the studio, but the piano in the studio is perfectly tuned, right? So they're like, this doesn't work. So they had the piano, the really good piano tuner there, and he had to detune the piano at the studio based on the recordings. So like after hours of him sitting on there, he goes like, okay, I'm done. This piano is perfectly detuned now. It's fantastic. Yeah, but it's a very interesting idea. The fact that we have these sounds as given, and I completely understand. Like if you're playing with a band, you can't have a C and then the other person sounds super bad with that. But I like the idea of when you do your own thing, you don't have to adhere to anything. Like if it sounds good to you.
Well, it's like I was playing the guitar again the other day. I've had I'm going to maybe save it for a surprise for the future. People that have been following some of my guitar-based effects journey, shall we say, may know of my recent sob story that's now maybe not so much of a sob story. I'd like to, well, let's not be silly. My Echoplex is working, so it's playing my guitar through my Echoplex. Story for another day. But I took the guitar out of the bag and tuned by ear across the strings relative to itself. But I can't even remember which was the first string I plucked and then tuned to. It might not have been the low E string, but that low E might have been flat. And then I've just tuned everything flat relative to that guitar. To me, it just doesn't matter. I was only playing the guitar to myself. I think we don't need to be too caught up and stuffy about it. I mean, had that been something that would have been a situation where I'd have caught myself out. I would have recorded something cool that was happening and then been annoyed when I'm like, I remember playing these chords. Why is it not these chords? I'd have only been slightly out. I would have known if it was way out. But yeah, it's all just kind of relative to what's going on. I think it's as simple as that. It's whatever situation it is in, and it can be as free or as rigid as it needs to be.
Yeah, there's some instruments that limit you to what you can achieve, like with the tuning, right? For me, it was the piano, so that limited what I could do in regards to the tuning on the synth and what I wanted there. Unless I then in some tracks where it was like, this is perfect. I think it's the first one called The Guide. I then used the pitch modulation called, I think, on the blooper pedal. I think, well, where's that thing? It has this artificial like wobbly thingy, which is very nice, like stability. So if you turn it up to the right, it will make it unstable. And so okay, so now the piano is not this absolute thing where everybody uses for pitch recognition, because it's just and now the syntax becomes the thing that gives the pitch. So I think like as musicians or as humans maybe even, we are looking for stability, something that gives us reference. And if you change the reference tone, you can do different things.
There's all sorts of stories of like some of the Michael Jackson big hits are not quite E flat, but are slightly flat from standard E tuning, which would be I guess you call a micro step down, microtone as opposed to a semitone. Thinking of microtones specifically, the Erica Synths Pico Quantizer lets you do microtones. It splits every piano key in its editor into two.
Yeah.
So you get cleanly kind of cut semitones into microtones, which is interesting. That's not necessarily following any kind of tuning temperament. That's just letting you split semitones is all.
I think it's 24/10, isn't it? Because each semitone can be half, but it's still like the equal distance between each quote unquote tone on there. So I think it's like 24/10.
You would get F, and then a slightly sharp F before you get to F sharp.
Yeah.
You're right, 24 tet is what it's doing. And then you can, in the editor, choose which notes of those are available and then, flash the module very easily.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
But one thing that I never understood, like when I was in the band, was using tuners. So I could like understand it for the root note, but from then on, like unless it was a stage situation, I always thought it sounded weird when it was tuned like on a Boss tuner or something, and I felt it always needed in ear, like by ear tuning. So one of the guys that was working with, he was always like, he was very much like, I just tune it to the little light, and I said, it's not good. It's not good. It's not good tuning. It still sounds out of tune. So we had a bit of discussion about that, and I wonder to what that Boss tuner tunes exactly to. I felt it was sounded always wrong to me. Maybe it is that thing.
I know that a great guitarist that I had fortunate experience of playing with when I was younger. When I had no money and ultimately was a kid, and strings were going rusty, and therefore intonation going off, higher, more out of tune as I went up the fretboard on the guitar. He told me just to tune to a different reference. It was like, stop playing fret 5 and tuning to the open string above it. So stop playing an A on the E string and playing the open A, because you're not really playing in that area of the guitar. It goes, move up and tune relative. Like the parts you're playing are all like kind of fret 8 to 12 or whatever. Get that bit of the instrument in. And all right, it's now going to scale both ways from those frets and the intonation's going to go off. But you sound bad because you're tuning to a tuner or around the A, fret 5 kind of method, and then not playing in that area on your intonations off.
Makes total sense.
Just like, oh, that was a bit one of those like, right, okay. I can now, without buying more strings, even though they were cheap, get another couple of gigs out of these, which was important at the time. I had no cash, but yeah, it's the first time I'd thought about that. It was just always if it's right on the tuner, it's right on the tuner. And of course, it's not necessarily.
Super topic. Such an interesting topic. It's very
deep, and it's funny with the modeler that we have all these quantizers. It's like it's an unfretted instrument, the modular. You can put the pitch in any way you want, and everyone's like, quantizers.
I have to say, like the first time I put a quantizer into my modular rig, that my wife said, "Oh, it's actually starting to sound good," because it translated like all the weird noise that I was making into something that's relatable to non-super bleepy bloop nerds. So I called the intelligible use scale called the love module, because now we get the communication going. Perfect. So so I'm very thankful for that U scale, nano scale, U scale, micro, U scale. I call it U scale.
I say U scale, but yeah, micro scale. That's one of the things with the wing pinger that we saw in the Super Boost streams. It having this pentatonic quantization to some of its chaos generation. It's always just lovely, because every note in a pentatonic scale is far enough away from each other to all harmonize nicely with the other ones and just not clash. And that was really cool. Really nice.
Yeah, pentatonic is cheating. Everything sounds good on a pentatonic, right?
Yeah. No. Kind of. There's a pet peeve of mine, not too far from the minor pentatonic, the blues scale, is blues scales played in descending pitch on a keyboard on a synth. Not that we need to get into pet peeves and me going on a big rant, but yeah, falling down a blues scale on a synthesizer, it really kind of makes me cringe. I don't mind blues. I don't mind the styles of music that's referencing at all, but it's just one of those things I hear and I'm just like, oh.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
We now know how to irritate div kit when when someone makes a demo video, it's going to be blues scale going down.
It's that emphasis. It's that emphasis put on the fallback to the fundamental as well. And you're just like, oh god.
Well, I have
Konstantin, now you got something that you need to work in beautifully into the theme for this show. So now you get some music for that.
Yes. Okay. It's going to be blues scale in there for sure.
It's going to be the ending, like
yeah, that bend on the minor fizzle. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Anything else from Superbooth that we missed while we were streaming and you were excited about later on?
Tell you what I did see that I really liked against one of Sonic State's videos. It was Finn is from Sonic. Finn is from DBS, a music school here in the UK, and they collaborated. A bit of an update and a look at the Sonic and DBS stochastic inspiration generator, which is very similar to Vermona's Melodicer, if people have seen both.
Well, actually, I would say the Sonic came before, right?
Vermona announced first some time ago. Sonic released first. You're right, and then Vermona has just come. I think I saw Symphonatomy post something with the Vermona recently. But yeah, it has a keyboard layout of sliders, and it's from it won't appear to it will nearly always be that a probability per note. And I love that way of thinking of, okay, this is centered around an F minor chord, but I kind of don't want to focus on that third, but I want a bit of it. So you could have F uploads because that's the root, and just a bit of another note, and you kind of fade in and slide over time. What the Sonic started doing that I thought was very clever was octave shifting per note, and Finn got into talking about what feels like your tonal center. He was playing what felt like very much a C minor thing that had a little bit of F in there, which would be a fourth for anyone that's curious. But when he dropped the F, the octave, that feels like the root. So it kind of feels like it shifted you into another mode. The whole thing's been pinned down differently, much like the left hand on a piano moving away from a root note in the right hand chord, or bass player kind of rooting down a chord on a guitar slightly differently. And it instantly started to sound really cool. It was doing probability based envelopes as well. So it would do probability of a rise of an attack, probability of a hold, probability time on the decay or the release, probability of a ratchet happening. It just seemed like such an amazing probabilistic, not random, it's way more music than true random. Yeah. Just a really cool way to work. I really, really want one. And with a little expander,
exactly.
Lords just said that in the chat. It's now 4 voices of that, and I was
that's beautiful. When I saw the expander, that blew my mind. That's super nice to have that stochastic thing going on for 4 voices at the same time.
Frank in the chat, hey Frank, who's in all the Super Boost streams as well, says that the Vermona, the Melodicer, looks slightly easier to use. Less cluttered panel, maybe. There's a lot in my mind musically to be said for the flat and sharp notes being on that higher tier. It looks like black and white keys in my mind, whereas just rows of the same fader going through sharps and flats and natural notes doesn't quite speak to me as much. I know my mind wouldn't quite go to add an E flat in and just grab a fader, because it doesn't have that mindset of a keyboard attached to it in my mind. And I think in use that would probably be a big thing. Sonic's much smaller. Not thought down to the Vermona because I haven't tried it or seen as much with it, but that general idea looks really cool. Well worth a watch.
Konstantin, anything you saw?
I think the Jawmox was the one that got bumped that we didn't. Yeah. It's an interesting. I always liked the Resonator. I always find it fascinating. Yeah. Too much of a wild beast for me. Like I had one and I sold it after a while because I couldn't. I tamed it, but it was always like. Ugh. But this one sounded interesting, and you can even play back samples on it. Like you can record stuff and put it on SD card. I like the fact that it's its own packed instrument. If the user experience on it is good, which part of me doubts that's the case. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be fun.
There's a question about other stochastic modules. I will put a link in, which is me literally just searching the term stochastic on Modular Grid. But the function generator from ADAC comes to mind.
Yeah, I can praise that to no end. I had the stochastic function generator by Teia, which is a guy from Portugal that made a one-channel version of the stochastic generator, who now works with ADAC, and together they made the quad version. It's absolutely brilliant. Well, I'm a sucker for stochastic stuff because it's a Xenakis term, and me being Greek is like, it's a catchphrase for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That video with Finn is great because he references isorhythms, and without being heavy or in any way condescending, or he's throwing in some really interesting musical terms with this conversation with Nick. It's on the Sonic State channel. And, referencing John Cage and others. It's a really nice, informed presentation of where all these things come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ADAC is great because you just set that minimum and maximum for rise and fall time, and it will always operate within the boundaries you set. And they can be very close or very wide, or really cool work.
For me, the whole concept is super nice for two reasons. One of the most underrated random modules out there for me is the ADAC. I think it's 501. I need to look it up. I have it somewhere. I can look it up later. I have it somewhere in one of the cases. Which
triple bandpass?
Sorry?
The triple bandpass?
No, it's the random module. If it's not 501, it might be 503. They only have one random module, which does the same thing: minimum and maximum values for the randomization. And the nice thing that it does Brownian randomization, which means you don't get these jumps with the random. It's just the next value is informed by what the previous value is. So the random goes like in a more of a slewed fashion, which is super nice because you don't get jumps. You can patch random everything, and then things slowly shift. And the same premise of minimum and maximum values on the randomization work on the stochastic envelope generator. And what I like about that is when you do physical modeling, you can have very similar AD envelopes, but they're never exactly the same, which is exactly how you would do on an actual instrument. When you hit a key, it's never exactly the same length. And you would think, who cares? It makes a huge difference. Huge difference. As soon as you patch one of those stochastic envelope generators in a physical model thing, you're like, this sounds more alive now for some reason.
Yeah, you will love like everything Sonic Labs Xenon does, because like stochastic is very much in the heart of all his instruments. Also on fundamental, I think he just 32 stochastic independent LFOs driven by a rich palette of stochastic functions, continuous, discontinuous. There's really a whole lot of modulation going on there that does exactly that. It's really not something that really draw me to that, and that's why it has this combination of this how would you call it, like vintage up top but very modern modulation section down below, which is really interesting. And if you Konstantin, you're not a software guy, but there's the pass bot, which is the bandpass filter, and then you can set like a large amount of bandpass filters, and you can all have them modulated differently, but in the same way but differently. It's just such a beautiful cluster and cloud of tones that happens then.
No, you got me intrigued, man. And again, like this is for my end, this is a huge praise, because software, like sitting on a laptop, is not a big thing for me. No. But this, as soon as I saw it, that's why I said during the stream, and I'm gonna say it again, we need to make this into hardware. I need to have a big knob right there. We'll find someone who's
We'll find someone.
But until then, I'm definitely going to check the software out. I'm super intrigued into that.
Yeah, my head's been in noise distribution curves, not going quite Brownian in something coming in a couple of weeks, but this idea of very musical random and probability uses. It's kind of really lovely headspace to be in.
Yeah, I remember still the first time I tried Noise Ring, and I was like, "Oh, okay, oh, there's a little jazz drummer in here, and like a little saxophonist also. They're having a party there." This is a lovely module, and that was my first contact like with that in hardware. Like, wow, lovely.
I've just put a kind of final call for any questions in the chat
Yeah,
as we start
good.
to round things off.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Last orders, everyone. Last orders. So we're doing the final call for any question in the chat. Everybody, cheers.
Cheers.
To the chat and all of you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I feel like in Germany we say Sitzfleisch. It means you've got flesh to sit on. Because this doesn't feel like we've been talking long right now anymore.
Say, we've got to have another 6 hours in us yet.
Exactly. If it's doesn't really. This is. But I was thinking the same thing simply for reasons of self-preservation because tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, Ben. Good that you started it.
Someone said, "What am I drinking?" It's Balcones Texan single malt. I think he was joking and he doesn't work there anymore, but Winston, that used to work there into his LZX and video synth stuff, joked that Jack Daniels have the kind of rock and guitar world cornered for being the kind of guitarist rock whiskey. He said, I want to be the synth whiskey of the world.
Yeah, I wish. We need a synth whiskey of the world.
Yeah.
Happy to plug a synth whiskey. So
yeah. We're here. We're here for the whoever wants to be the synth whiskey of the world. Yeah, I'm interested.
I'm just looking at questions still. Brumata, I think, says, do we know of a sequencer that will send bipolar voltages? So not positively, I guess they mean. Sequence to attenuverters, basically. The RYO VC Seek is an attenuverter per step, 8-step sequencer. Quite an easy DIY build, I think, if you see one. I'm not sure of many others that do negative voltage sequencing.
The question was negative voltage sequencing.
Yeah, a sequencer that will output bipolar voltages.
Moskva.
Yes.
Moskva does that.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Good.
Chaos modules Moskva.
I love your pronunciation there.
House.
Yeah. It's good. It's correct.
Yeah.
The best one for pronunciation is the Salam pull from ALM. I love that.
When I see that, that makes me. I just look at it. It hurts my it hurts my brain to look at that panel. It's like
And Matthew said to me, he goes, imagine like a very good French dish in a very good restaurant. And I was like, oh, okay. And then finally, a few days later, he was like, you know, it says ALM in the middle of the word, right? Like SALM pull. And I was like, oh, all right, this makes sense. I just said, I'm going to just say what I want in the video. And I think I went with SALM pull. Yeah, we're not even going with the squid SALM pull. That was my take on that. Let me just quickly zip through questions. Some nice thanks for the stream, those kind of things. Cheers for everyone being there. That's great. Did we see the filter from Supercritical? I saw them teasing it. It looks fantastic.
I didn't see that. What is it?
They made the Demon Core oscillator, like Super Saw stacked oscillator thing. They have a new filter that has. I'm gonna pull it up because it'll be very quick to find.
Is it a stereo filter?
Hey,
do we have bingo?
Supercritical.
Because I think it is. I was laughing when I saw their teaser. I was like, "Oh, come on, not another stereo filter."
Yes, it is a stereo filter.
Thank you.
It is. I was thinking it wasn't because the Demon Core isn't. It's a main out, not a stereo out. I don't.
No, but it's just polyphonic because you can do MIDI input, right?
Yeah, stereo filter, but it has the liquid, crisp, fat, mean, and sour modes, and then the various filter modes, low and high pass, and all the usual suspects. Drive, amount of poles, character modulation, a stereo knob, which had maybe some kind of frequency tilt on there. That does look very good. but I don't know any more than anyone
Okay.
else on that one.
Okay.
Let me keep blasting through chats. So who's the synth whiskey? I'll let know. Balcones, but since Winston has left, I'm not too sure.
Someone
User
asked
Steve,
when we're having the next stream here.
In 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Friday in 2 weeks? Yeah. Will be a good
Mhm.
date? No?
Yep, you're keeping every fortnight, single malt,
Yeah.
become a
will be
regular
nice.
thing.
Yeah, regular thing. I think that's nice to have a
Yeah.
regular hangout. So
Definitely. Hanging out with friends and talking about synthesizers, drinking whiskey. Oh, this is perfect.
Quantizer for microtonal quantizing. I'll say Pico quantizer again, which is simply 12 or 24 tep, but it's an easy one, an easy accessible one to just start experimenting.
The 207 does polyphonic. The ADAC 207 also does microtonal. It's not that good for microtonal, but it's good. And the new upcoming Shakmat quad quantizer also does microtonal. We did this. Shakmat was on our stream for the Super Booth, so you should check that out.
Too big of a question from Joel W. How would you design a nice polyphonic voice for lush pads, e.g. a Juno? I wouldn't try and replicate a Juno in Eurorack. It would be
that
as
leads
expensive
to unhappiness.
It would be as expensive as a Juno and not as playable. And not as interesting, truth be told. But you can do some really cool polyphonic things, but it's too big of a question for last call. If we're looking to round up at some point. Alpha Stare, good point. He says, I feel bad for anyone that's releasing a mono filter right now.
Fair point. Although those will always be useful in Eurorack, I think.
Yeah, they will. Different mono filters on each side makes a nice stereo image. When you don't have an image, just simply having a different process on each side is
crazy. Makes the Syntrax, for example, so big, just different tilt filters. Suddenly stereo image.
And the resonant EQ versions, which is like it has 2 inputs, but it's the same thing. It sums down to 1. I'm talking about the Surge, the clones of the Surge resonant EQ into Eurorack. There's a bunch of versions right now, and it has odd and even outputs, so you can have a mono input into like a pseudo stereo, at least big stereo field output, which is super nice.
It's nice because doing it that way, it doesn't collapse when you mono sum them either, because you're physically kind of ripping bands apart from each other with a code.
That's right. I never thought of it. That's very right.
Yeah. Maybe they are in somewhat out of phase. Sonar Traffic Alert says out of phase though.
Could be.
There'll be phase differences in any filtering. That's just how EQ and filtering works.
Yeah, definitely.
Different. The Communic, is it from? I'm not even going to try and say it how you did. The Chaos devices, XAOC devices, phaser.
House. Like house music, but instead of house, it's house.
House music.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Different pole outputs on their phaser, taking 4 pole phasing to the left, 6 to the right. Yeah, all of that stuff's really cool. And play around with how it falls back into mono and not. You've new things coming, Heimbach. You should do a little plug before we round up.
Oh, yes. I've got a new album out. It's not out, it's on pre-order. It's called Assertion. And it's using the Syntrax and the piano and the blooper and a few other things. And it's going to be vinyl. Chase Bliss are making vinyl from that. Right now it's shipping only from the States, which can be a bit of a bummer for the Europeans. I still there's no distribution yet in place for Europe, but yeah, so I can't help with that at the moment. There will be some available from Patchpoint, but I think only in the store directly. So if you come to Berlin, you can pick up a copy there. But yeah, the album is in pre-order, and on Sunday, the last track of the album, which gave the title, Assertion, will be on Fact on their YouTube channel. Will premiere there. It's in the series patch notes, and yeah, I recorded that track live, basically in one take. And yeah, so that's the next thing that's coming up for that. And if you want to buy that album, pre-order. Digital comes out in 2 weeks, and the vinyl should ship 15th of July. It's actually like the lath has been cut, so it might even move up further, which is super awesome. And then you can go on heinbach.bandcamp.com, and there you can pre-order. And I would appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much.
Yep,
Yeah.
links in the chat for that.
No.
Yeah, go grab the album.
Any new cool stuff from you, Ben?
Maybe said noise distribution things. No, I think I said at Superbooth, I would have had a module out at Superbooth had everything not been affected. We're going to announce it when it's ready. Cool. It's as simple as that. I'm happy kind of teasing at where it's at without really giving anything away. But yeah, ideas of humanizing noise distribution, some people will kind of get where it's going. With a different company that I've not worked with collaboratively before, not for any reason other than there's a lot of cool people out there doing cool things. More is to come from Bafako. We may have had a prototype of something at Superbooth, but I was very adamant we didn't show it till it was ready anyway. So I may have seen progress on something, but they're a fairly sizable team that are now largely working from home, so that's slowed down somewhat. So yeah, new module ideas. I'm just working on the DPW Moog, or Moog, as I think Dan says. Apologies to anyone that's Swedish. 4-band distortion, which has been really cool. That video should probably be out Monday. I have a few Pico videos for Erica that I shot a long time ago. And yeah, there's tons of videos.
Videos. I didn't even mention as
but yeah, streaming tomorrow actually, 7:30 UK time, which will be 8:30 CEST for Europe. I think it's 2:30 on the East Coast and 11:30 on the West Coast of the States. But just check my YouTube; it'll tell you in your location when that starts. But it's for following from the Feeding the Monster patches. Everybody said, you filled this monster case with Chris, can we hear it? And we were like, well, yeah. So
this is cool. I'm gonna drop by tomorrow.
Yeah. I need to do that as well. I'm very much looking for. I love the other videos. So it was a lot of fun being on the feed the monster thing. So this is gonna be fun as well.
So we move into patching the monster, which I think will become an irregular but constant series of streams. Basically, us getting Chris to patch things for us and asking questions.
That, by the way, that's really weird. I remember like when I was patching here for I think it was a Geranalog or something, and then you like, can you patch that? Can you patch that? It's like, okay, Jed, I'm the patch row. It's really interesting.
It's strange.
It's tough though, right? Because one of the tough things is whenever I look at someone else's, I'm at Superbooth, right? And you have a case right in front of you, and it's like, oh, patch something. It's like, I don't know this case. I have no idea. Like, I know these modules, but this is you need to get familiar with the case before you can start actually doing very good stuff on it, right?
But now I've got a good idea for a new video, because I still got the analog computer, and because of all the gear videos that I have to do, like new releases and stuff, I can't get to that. But if I could have someone who knows how this thing works, like show me on stream how it works and how to make a nice patch, that would be a fun stream, I think.
I like the idea, kind of patch by committee. It'll end up being
patch by committee.
we should do one. We should definitely try it.
Yeah, we can maybe
patch
do that
by committee.
Future show,
committee. And drinking whiskey at the same time. Maybe drink whiskey for the first hour and then start patching. See what happens.
The absolute worst patch experiences I've ever had have been shop systems, because the retailers, rightly so, kind of just throw all the like hot new sexy bits in, and you're kind of like, is there a VCA in this case that's like a bookshelf? And they're like, no, there's no VCAs in there's no mixing, there's no whatever. Just like, all right, you've literally just thrown all like the hot new oscillators and effects in. I get it, it's a retailer, it's not anyone's particular instrument, but you go and you're like, oh, I can't do anything with this. does force you to think differently, though, when the obvious utilities are pulled away from you and you're trying to get around them. That must be your whole experience with test equipment in a nutshell.
Yeah, no utilities. Yes, yeah, it's the same. That's a similar thing. Oh, I want to patch that again. Oh, I mean, I've made a little setup here, so I'm using it a lot. Actually, all the filters, that's lovely. But the big wall, I haven't played with it in 6 weeks, two months.
Shame.
Yeah,
For shame.
it's not that I've not made any music. I've made like so much music. I mean, even with just like this, I made 5 tracks, and they're one or two is halfway decent, and yeah, it's just. I'm looking forward to all this time spent with all these instruments always. Yeah. But the jobs that you make for yourself, and sometimes they're.
Yeah.
You know that gear grind also. You know there's release dates, and some people say, okay, come out on this day, and it doesn't make sense. Like if you put out the video like a week later, like the views are gonna be like meh. Anyway.
Yeah, it depends though. It depends how much later, how much more comfortable you are with it. We don't need to get into it now, and I don't mean this as any judgment, but if someone this following week dropped a no control video, I would watch it, because I think they've built so much hype around it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot happened all at once, and that's a lot to take in for
there
people.
was a lot at once.
Which, people either absorb all that straight away, or it's a bit too much for some. Pluses and minuses to everything. I'm not trying to make a judgment call here, but if someone put one up next week, it would still be a good ripe time. But then beyond that, I think time almost doesn't matter. It could come up, if it comes in a month or 3 months, it's kind of like, whatever. If I want to see that person go through that process and that gear,
exactly.
Once a release has been missed, it's been missed. It's kind of like, let them find themselves in it long term.
Yeah, I think for the next release that's coming on the new synthesizer, I partnered with Loop Pop on that. So because to make the whole like feels like a competition, which I really don't like, I said let's do something together, and that will be like, so that will be.
This is something coming in about a week or something.
A week or something, yeah. So that will be fun.
Cool. But, that's interesting.
I like that. I love it when, for the first time, people that watch all our kind of content realize we're all friends, and it's not this kind of competition thing. And like, oh, cool! I just saw a picture with you and the other person. It's like, yeah, we talk all the time. I like that, and it's nice to kind of constantly expose that forward to an audience. That
exactly,
it's a big collaborative, very sharing, very open kind of cool thing that's going on. Yeah. So I look forward to that, whatever it is you've been doing with Loop Pop.
Tuesday, I think.
Cool.
Krachwerkstatt. Thank you. I still don't know where I patched it. I'm sorry. I don't even know. I think like I got the quad reverb on 3, but it's turned off because I keep my rack like I turn only on what I need. So it's more. Yeah. Oh, it goes on. Buzz. Thank you. It sounds more creepy. Oh, fun. Yeah.
Yep. I've just dropped my little streaming resource link in the chat.
Perfect.
The one for tomorrow. Anyone doing any streams, friend of friends related content, do let me know somewhere. I'm still updating this isolation streams list. A lot of people have slowed down now, kind of rightly so. The big burst of, we've got to do stuff has kind of dissipated somewhat, and Super Boost moved on. But there are people still falling into, like this, the big burst of Super Boost, and then it's now on a 2-week schedule. Yeah,
I needed a break after that. It felt good to have like
2 weeks. I think 2 weeks was a good break. Like, if we had at first, it took me a week to just go back to normal after the streaming, and which actually that's one of the reasons why I did feel like the actual Super Booth, because you're on a weird like what just happened. And it took a week to go back to, okay. I think
that was exactly the feeling I was hoping to have, but
yeah. So 2 weeks later is good. And having this stream and talking, just chilling and what did we miss? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think I'll have certainly mutual friend of yours as well. Hi, I'm back. Jamie Liddell on a stream next week.
Oh, seriously?
Awesome.
That's
Nice.
super cool.
Thursday, I think.
Uh,
Around this same kind of time, around 8 p.m. UK.
Thursday. Awesome.
that's
Call.
super cool. I'm definitely
Mark it
gonna
in the
come.
calendar.
Yeah,
Hey,
I met him a
Siri,
couple of times. He's super
Thursday.
nice dude.
Make Tamin. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were joking.
No,
Okay.
no. She's always listening.
Okay.
Yeah, Colin Bender streams out daily anymore, and he's pacing them out. I mean, Colin was going hard on this, and as always, just pulling a hell of a lot out of his system, and it's a lot of music for one person to make, regardless of the streaming involved. That's a big burst of kind of artistic energy that I don't think anyone can ride that for so long.
I completely feel that, like, and now I feel like after personally like trying to do so much stuff in the beginning, like he did, like I also need to like rock steady and keep it a bit more calm. It's kind of like, yeah, because this is it evens out a bit right now. So you need to watch your health and not overwork yourself, right?
Yeah, I think if I consult the list, are there any streams that any stream punks can jump right across to as we wrap up?
Nice.
That's a
I
good
think
question.
Modular on the Spot Worldwide, which is a new one. I think it's John O. Wells from the kind of San Diego Modular on the Spot. People, please correct me if I'm wrong. They are live right now. I'll put a link in the chat. If everyone wants to go over there and go, Single Malt Synthesis sent me here.
Yay.
Otek are doing streaming almost daily, I think. Like I'm following them they're doing it on Twitch. I don't know if you guys have noticed. And sometimes they do twice a day. It's super weird. These two dudes just doing their crazy stuff with amazing visuals each time. Amazing. They're just way ahead of the curve. And I love the fact that they're doing it on Twitch, and you get like a couple of people talking at the same time. I just put it on. It's midday for Northern Europe. I just put it on and work at the same time. Fantastic.
Yeah, I
Very
need to
nice.
see what they would do. I like that they gave all their machine drum stuff away. They were basically like, here's our live set. Drop it in your mono machine and machine drum, and you can run what we were doing. I thought it was really cool.
Which kind of proves the whole idea of it's not the devices that you own. Like a bunch of people, it's what you do with the stuff that you own that really makes it. Like if you push it to the edge. I really remember a Square Pusher interview. I think we've mentioned that before. Like it's on YouTube, and he was just using the most basic stuff and just pushing it to the edge. So it's not just let's just buy the new hardware. It's like whatever you own, try to push it as much as possible, and it'll be your own sound. That's the nice thing about them.
The chat, I wonder if they're still there. A lot of the chat has moved across to the Modular on the Spot, saying, is this the YouTube version of a Twitch raid? Commenting on their video. So yeah, I'll drop the link one more time if people want to go join. It's Patrick O'Brien playing at the minute. Patrick's a good dude. So yeah, great.
Awesome.
Really love to hang out.
Yeah, it was lovely again, and we are gonna do this again in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks
and
very
if you
much.
want to support the stream, you've already hit a bunch of you have already hit the super chat, and check out Ben's Patreon. And I think I put that link in the description. Konstantine, I think I put your Instagram is also in the description.
Yep,
and of
follow.
course my Patreon. It's very much appreciated. And yeah, basically that gives us the time to do these. And thank you very much.
Great. See you next time. Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.